Yeah, I'll call the Board of Supervisors into session. We start the morning with the work session with our county engineer, Anthony Bargett. Anthony.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Okay, not a lot on the sort of the agenda here, but I'll just cover a couple topics here. Just want to give an update for the consultant selection process for the construction engineering consultant RFP. So over a week ago, we went through the final interviews of the two consultants who put in their RFPs, and that was Orange and Design and Bolton and Mink. So the selection committee did make a final evaluation. I was hoping to have a recommendation to the board today, but we have to go through this sort of a DOT audit of the process before, and they have to kind of give us the go ahead before we can give the recommendation to the board. So that's just been delayed just a little bit. I'm hoping to get it on the agenda next Monday for final approval. But just kind of let you know that's what's taking place right now for that. I guess one other item that I want to bring your attention to that's kind of developing. The DOT is currently putting together their plans for reconstructing Highway 3 over to Sageville. And as I understand it, they're going to be bidding that out this year, and I think it's construction for next year. As a part of that, they're going to have to close down a portion of the Heritage Trail over by Durango. And I know Brian Preston has been involved with this extensively as well. And Brian and I had a meeting with Sam Shea of the Iowa DOT last week. And the DOT is requesting to use Burton's Furnace Road, which comes east out of Durango, as a detour for the trail itself. Now that's a Class C road. There's a gate on it, so we'll have to, we'll have to change it up just a little bit. We don't want to take the gates down, but there's probably going to have to be some revision to the gates themselves. There's going to have to be some updates to the road itself as far as lighting it up and putting down some trail like material as similar to the Heritage Trail. The DOTs would be fully reimbursing all of that cost. So they're in the process of putting together an agreement that will come before the board. So we have tentatively said, yeah, we'll work with you guys on this. It sounds like the trail is going to be closed for the better part of next year, 2023, as what I'm being told. So just wanted to give you an update on that. That's kind of coming your way.
Anthony, did they talk about where to reroute it? Is it going to go down to Clay Hill and then connect with the trail down there?
Yeah, it'll come across to Clay Hill and then go up Clay Hill and then connect up from there.
And connect back in Durango, right?
Correct.
It'll be, I guess, figuring out how to get the gates to work, to keep cars out of there, but still have to, I guess we're going to have people there. We're going to have it accessible for emergency vehicles somehow. So.
Well, and the gate system has to be ADA accessible as well. So there's going to have to be kind of a gate and then a wide enough area for, say somebody in a wheelchair or something like that, and then some kind of a post outside of that. So for what's there for now for gates, I mean, it's not going to work. We're going to have to revise that a little bit. So we'll be working on that.
Did DOT guarantee that it wouldn't flood as well?
They didn't say anything about that.
Dang. Okay, I think that's a decent workaround, though. I mean, I would be, interested to make sure the traffic is calm as they go down to Clay Hill, because the motorists aren't used to seeing too many pedestrians on that section. Well,
that's one of the questions I do have back to the DOT, and they're checking into it. Is kind of who carries the liability on this? It'd be a shared use trail. I mean, that's not typical of pedestrian traffic sharing the path with vehicles. We have shared use paths as far as bikes and vehicles, but not so much with walkers and hikers and things like that. So. That's a little bit of a conflict there, even though there's not a lot of traffic there. There's kind of a risk to some liabilities there. So I've got a question to the DOT as to who carries that liability. They're checking into that.
We'll have to get it posted, I think, along Clay Hill Road. You know, that motorists know there's going to be pedestrians on the bridge or whatever that
Right.
slowed down some.
Yeah, and there will be a a signage installation as a part of the project itself, directing pedestrians, and yeah, we'll reiterate that there needs to be some caution for traffic as well for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anthony, just so we can explain it to the citizens and other people on the Heritage Trail, the reason for the closure is because they'll be working on Highway 3, and potentially the, above construction could put those on the trail in harm's way. Is that the general background?
Yeah, that stretch of Heritage Trail that parallels Burton's Furnace Road, it gets pretty tight with Highway 3 there. And so they're going to be doing, quite a bit of, I shouldn't say quite a bit, but they're going to be doing some grade change. They're being doing some grade widening. And so that's going to impact the trail itself. So they're going to have to close it down to make sure it's, everybody's safe. And I know they're going to be doing some pipe work as well that extends through the trail, so that there's going to be some actual trail closure due to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
They're going to be doing some bluff work too, aren't they, Anthony?
Yes, that's what I understand too. Yep. So yeah, we'll be working on that, and some kind of agreement will be coming your way in the future.
All right. Do you have any questions on that, Ann, or?
When is that scheduled to begin, Anthony?
I'm being told it's going to be let sometime this year and then begin construction for 2023.
I'm sure we'll revisit this then. So yes.
Yes. Yep. And Brian's still working with the DOT on this. I know he's got his concerns with the way the trail is going to be impacted as well. So we're both kind of working with him on either end.
It'd be beneficial to just have people avoid that area altogether. Just go, some people drive out to Durango anyway, just drive out to Durango and walk west to avoid that area. Or if you're coming from the city, just go to Clay Hill and back. Yeah,
and I think Brian was going to try to get hold of, certain organizations that usually have activities on the trail itself. It wouldn't be a good year to try to plan like a marathon across Heritage Trail. So,
right.
So there's going to be some limitations there.
A lot of changes coming on 50 or Highway 3 now. They're doing a lot of power work up top of Gillespie Hill north now. So
yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that changes through Gillespie Hill.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, I don't have a lot of other updates.
Guys out early this morning with the salt.
Yep. It's going to be a long day.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Jay, have anything further? Or?
I do not.
And do you have anything further?
I do. Anthony, can you address the contract update with Thoth? Was that expected that they're asking for an additional payment? This is on the build grant.
Yeah, so when we started in on the process with Thoth, we did not anticipate this. I've probably read through the memo. There were some changes that we had to encounter through the process. We had to have a few more meetings. So there were some extra things that we had to analyze. There was the trail crossing at Highway 3 as well that needed some extra revision. There was the roundabout peer review that took longer to kind of get through. And there were some extra meetings with whether it be the DOT or some John Deere staff. So I can't fault them for trying to go after some extra costs on this, because there was some extra working on this.
They reference a trail bridge. What is that exactly?
So right there across from the proving grounds, the trail is going to be paralleling West John Deere Road, and there's a little bit of a waterway there that needed to be crossed right there with a small bridge. And so that took some extra work to actually develop the hydraulic model for that and the structural analysis and to do something with that. So that was a little bit extra time that was not anticipated.
So then you're recommending payment of the extra 41,000, I believe?
I am, and this is coming out of our SDBG from DMATS, and we have enough SDBG to funds to cover that, so we're not needing to ask DMATS for any extra funding or anything like that. So it's still covered within the amount that was awarded to us.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anything further, Ann?
No, thank you for the update. And again, the article in the paper this morning about the federal infrastructure money and the impact on the safety and bridge repairs and replacements. Good job.
Good article, yes.
To recess till 9.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recess until 9. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are in recess till 9. Nine o'clock, we'll call the Board of Supervisors back into session. We'll start the meeting with public comments. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters of which are on the agenda. Please go to the podium, state your name and home address. Individuals wishing to comment on a public hearing will be given the opportunity during that respective hearing. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Have anyone in chambers wishing to speak? Here's we have no one here. Or, do we have anyone on Zoom, Kevin?
I do not see anybody.
All right. Moving along, we'll go to proclamations. There are no proclamations for approval at this meeting. Next, we go to the approval of the minutes of the meetings of February 10th, 2022, which is a budget meeting, and February 14th was a normal board meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of February 10th and February 14th.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of February 10th and February 14th. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have consent items. There are no consent items. Approval at this meeting. We have no procurement procedures at this meeting. Next, we have a public hearing. A resolution setting the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a general obligation refunding loan agreement and to borrow money thereunder. I believe our auditor, Kevin Dragato, has some context for that.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Good morning, everybody. This is the first step in that series of events that DA Davidson was talking to us about as far as refunding the landfill bonds. So actions taken today, and we can go through the packet real quickly. The first sheet in the packet is a very specific set of minutes that we'll fill out after the meeting to provide them as far as documentation of the proposal of the public hearing. The second is the resolution setting the date for the public hearing. That public hearing will be set for March 7th. And the resolution outlines the information that will be published, as well as further information about the actual refunding of the general obligation landfill facility bonds. Moving on, this will be the actual publication that will appear in all 3 newspapers. And then we have a number of attestation certificates that'll be signed by myself, as well as an organization certificate and the publication certificate after the public notice was published in the papers. So a fair bit of paperwork, but in the end, what we're looking at today is approving the resolution that will set the date for the public hearing, so that anybody who may have a question can come in and talk to us about it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any questions, Jay or Ann?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution setting the public hearing for March 7th.
You have to go in the public hearing for what is?
No, we're
It's not a
setting
public
the-
hearing.
It's not a public hearing. We're
It's
setting
not
the
a
date.
public hearing. We're just setting the date. I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve setting the date for the public hearing for March 7th. All in favor
I
signify
have
by
one
aye.
comment first.
Oh,
Just,
sorry.
and so it caught me when I was looking at this. I don't know if, am I reading this right? Is the interest rate for 2022 4% and then it goes down?
Our current interest rate is 4%. That's showing your current interest rate.
Okay, so
And then
this
after
this
the
is the
re-
current.
Correct.
Okay,
After the refunding, which would take place July 1st, we'd be looking at 2.25%.
Okay.
So a substantial drop in interest, which is
Okay.
nice.
thank you. So that's showing the initial interest rate.
Yeah, similar, you know, a good way to put this would be that when you refinance your mortgage, you're actually redoing the entire mortgage. That's effectively what we're doing here, is we're basically replacing the old bonds with new bonds with a much better interest rate. So that's a very basic understanding of it, but it's a good way to sort of get it out there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Sorry about that, Jay.
Nope, no worries.
We have a motion and a second to set the public hearing for March 7th. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Approval of plats, resolution to approve the final plat of Klein Farm subdivision. Do we have Tammy on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tammy.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, the property is owned by Kenneth A. Klein Estate and is located 1.24 miles south of the city of Rickettsville along Horseshoe Road with a total of 40.10 acres surveyed. The property is owned R2 Single Family Residential and A1 Agricultural. The purpose of this plat is to create a lot large enough to include the existing shed and well to be able to sell to a family member before the sale of the remainder of the crop ground. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 3.03 acres surveyed with an existing shed, and it will be sold to a family member for a future home site. Lot 2 is a total of 37.07 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 and Lot 2 share an existing 33-foot wide access and utility easement off of Horseshoe Road. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat. There are no mortgages on this property. And all of the signatures are current. This plat's been reviewed by myself as plats officer, has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. So this is just simply where there's an existing shed. They're expanding in the area to create a lot that will allow for a home for a family member in the future. As you can see, it's going to end up being just a little over 3 acres. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have nothing. I'm familiar with it. Jay, you have
Nope,
anything?
I do not.
Ann, do you have anything?
Do not, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution approving the final plat of Klein
And I will-
Farm subdivision.
And I will second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the final plat of Klein Farm subdivision. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to action items. Have a resolution to approve the hiring of deputies, assistants, and clerks.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the hiring of deputies, assistants, and clerks. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have a resolution to approve the necessary documents for Cycle Media Services. Anthony is still on for context.
Yes, so a couple years ago, the Board of Supervisors approved a contract, is every other year redrive of the pavements in the county by Cyclomedia. And what that is they go out and image all of the highways and also shoot in what's called LiDAR imaging to give us some ground shot data. So this year we're up for the driving in. I've requested that they give me a cost on also doing the gravel roads, which we've never done before. And this tool is very, very useful for us. And I've actually presented it in the board before with different imaging. But it enables us to do a lot of planning from the office on our highway system. And it's going to be really a valuable tool also for the gravels, for different assessments. So this is what the additional fee would be for adding on the gravel miles within the county. So I guess any thoughts from there or any questions?
Do you have the extra money in your budget, Anthony? Are you looking for extra funds for this, or?
Yeah, I'm actually right now overfunded in my consultant funding line item within the budget. So that's where it will be pulled from. So I'm in good shape there.
Okay. Good.
And Anthony, this is Jay. We have 3 employees now that share duties with 2 different counties. Is that right?
Let's see, myself,
Craig?
I guess, yeah, Craig, myself, and Wyatt.
Surveyor.
Yes.
And the surveyor too. Yeah, so I would, my assumption would be that this would be a good tool for certainly for you 3 when you're sharing duties and maybe 20 or 30 miles away actually from the county that you're getting a question on, that this would give you some additional availability, different access to the information. Is that true?
Oh, most definitely. I've used this program quite a bit from my Delaware County office as well. So it opens up the county from my seat at my computer. It's just an awesome tool.
Good to hear.
Ann, do you have anything?
No?
And then Anthony, maybe my last question, if you can kind of just maybe describe a little bit about our infrastructure related to the miles of paved versus granular surfaces.
Yeah, let's see. I think we have it broke down on that previous page there. If you want to flip back one there. Okay, so we have 375 miles of it's like gravel roads there. We have 835 total miles of roads. 375 miles of it being gravel. So it's, it's about a 1/3, 2/3 split there.
Okay, thank you.
Are you looking for a motion to approve the resolution?
I will make a motion to approve the resolution to approve the purchase.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the necessary documents for Cycle Media. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to approve the necessary contract update memorandum with both Infrastructure and Environment LLC for additional consultant professional engineering services for Iowa DOT project number HDP-C031-110-6B-31 and STBG-SW-AP-C031-112-FG-31 grade and pave improvements to the Northwest Arterial D10 South John Deere Road build project.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the contract amendment with Fulth. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Resolution carried. Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to approve the necessary documents with Dyersville Equipment Company for the purchase of a new 2022 John Deere 5065E utility tractor.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the purchase of the new tractor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution with or documents with John Deere Dyersville Equipment Company. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to approve the asphalt paving agreement with the city of Dubuque for Old Highway Road and Cousins Road.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the asphalt paving agreement with the city of Dubuque. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to approve the sponsorship funding for Dubuque Night in Des Moines. That is $3,000 sponsorship from the county.
I believe you have Molly Grover online if you'd like her to speak.
Molly, do you have context on that?
Thank you, Supervisor Potoff. Thank you, Dubuque County Supervisors, for the opportunity to talk about Dubuque Night in Des Moines. It's the longest running legislative reception in Des Moines. It is since 2018 been a co-sponsored event amongst the city, the chamber, Travel Dubuque, GDDC, and the county. And we host this event collectively. The past several years, it has been actually, and it's been since 2017. Since 2019, it's been at the Embassy Club in Des Moines. And this is an opportunity to talk to our legislators, our Dubuque delegation, as well as legislators all across the state about economic priorities that are important to our community, to advance our community, to build relationships. And we haven't had it last year due to COVID, but we're looking forward to meeting face to face on March 16th. So we appreciate your consideration of our request. We would also ask that you budget for it as well in fiscal year 23.
Okay, thank you, Molly. Anyone have questions?
Just so I understand, this request is for fiscal year 22. Are you looking ahead to, I mean, I'm not sure when you mentioned fiscal year 23, are we asking to do this twice? What are we doing?
Thank you. That is a great question, Supervisor McDonough. We're asking for 22, so that would be the event March 16th, 2022, and also asking to include it in the budget for 23.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution, the sponsorship this month in fiscal year 22.
I will second the motion.
Have a motion and a second to approve the sponsorship funding for Dubuque Night for March 16th. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Then I am.
Yes, aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mom.
you,
Thank you,
Molly.
Molly.
Next, we have a resolution to authorize the chair to sign the contract for services with Geisler Brothers Company regarding the DLSC roof project.
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Auditor Dragato. The sheriff's unable to attend today. If there are any questions, is the sheriff on? Oh, never mind, Joe. I didn't see it there.
That's okay. Yeah, I just want to give some, I guess, background on this, on these bids. So this bid, when you look at the bids we got, it's actually technically the third highest that we received. The lowest was from Geesey. That was for $280,000, but there was a contingency in that bid of $19,000 extra, assuming that the cost of materials was going to go up. So when we looked at that, we spoke to the other bidders. The other bidders said no, their bid was their hard number, and that was the final number that we were going to get. Because of that, we didn't feel that was a fair bid for the other for the county or for the other bidders. So then the second lowest bid was from Midwest Storm. When we did some research on that, their website shows mainly residential roofing, and so when we did a little investigating on them, and they've been in business for about 9 years. What they do is they bid projects and then they subcontract them out to other companies. And so, and they were only $700 cheaper than Geisler. And when we spoke to CJ about it and got his recommendation, and given the fact that Geisler Brothers has been in business in the Dubuque area for 130 years, they've got over 100 years of commercial roofing experience. They have a local crew. So we felt that given that we're required to go with the lowest responsible bidder, that actually made them the lowest responsible bidder. And in speaking with CJ, he agreed with that.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Questions, anyone? Ann?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the award of the service contract to Geisler Brothers.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the contract with Geisler Brothers. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, thank you, Joe. Next, we have a resolution to authorize the chairperson to sign the legal services engagement letter with Dorsey and Whitney LLP relating to the general obligation landfill facility refunding bonds.
Good morning. This is Auditor Dragato again. Dorsey and Whitney is in the refunding of our bonds, acting on our behalf as our bond counsel. There are no direct costs to the county for this. Their fees will not exceed $30,000, and they're paid out of bond proceeds. So they will be handling all of the bond issues on our end, representing us. And I respectfully recommend approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Kevin.
Make a
Question?
motion to. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
And I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution regarding Dorsey and Whitney. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, duplicate warrant for Lexus Serials.
I'll make a motion to approve the duplicate warrant.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the duplicate warrant. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Next we'll go to communications. Tom Cook Dairy Facility Manure Management Plan.
Make a motion to receive and file, noting there's no changes.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to receive and file the manure management plan. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Appointments, open vacancies for information only. Any questions on that? Okay. Move to personnel requisitions. Motion to approve the personnel requisition for clerk 2 in the sheriff's office. That'll be due to a retirement upcoming.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel requisition for the clerk 2 in the sheriff's office.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the personnel requisition. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have a motion to approve the personnel requisition for conservation aides, which is a total of 7.
Make a motion to approve.
I will second that.
Have a motion to approve the conservation aides, 7 positions. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have a motion to approve the personnel requisition for ground maintenance for conservation. It's a total of 5 positions.
I will make a motion to approve the personnel requisition for grounds maintenance.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the personnel requisition for ground maintenance positions, total of 5. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Carries. Go into public comments. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters of which are concerned to that person and which are not agenda items. Please go to the podium, state your name and home address. Please be aware that the board is limited in their ability to respond to such inquiries as the Iowa Code prohibits the board from deliberating or acting on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in chambers wishing to speak to the board? We have no one in chambers. Do we have anyone on Zoom, Kevin?
We do not.
Okay. That will end the board meeting. We'll go into work sessions beginning at 9:30. So
I will make a motion to recess till 9:30.
Second.
have a motion and a second to recess till 9:30. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. We're in recess till 9:30. 9:30, we'll call the Board of Supervisors back into session. Start at 9:30 work session to discuss externally our PA applications. We have the Community Foundation first, but I don't have anybody here. Did they want to do that over Zoom, Ed?
Harley, Supervisor Potoff, this is Ed Raber, and I have been in communication with all of our presenters this morning. The Community Foundation does anticipate being here. You'll notice that they're not here in the chambers. I believe that they're probably just in transit. There's some weather issues out there. And I've spoken with the second presenter, which is Kevin Coates from the Fairgrounds Fair Association. And I'd suggest let's let the Community Foundation just kind of settle in for a moment, and let's go with the second presentation first, and we'll just work back to the Community Foundation.
Okay, that's fine. Let's start with the Dubuque County Fair Association and our director, Kevin Coates.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Coates. I'm the general man. That's all right. Everybody does that. General manager at the Dubuque County Fairgrounds. Our address is 14569 Old Highway Road, Dubuque. So I'm here to talk about our application for the American Rescue Plan Act project. The project name for us is the Ballroom HVA System and replacement and install of a new roof. To improve the quality in our grand ballroom for our guests and reduce expenses with more energy efficient units and reduce the carbon footprint is one of our main purposes. Our ballroom is where many of our large events are held. Our ballroom capacity is 900 guests. The new HVA system will help reduce the airborne spread of viruses like COVID by improving ventilation, managing airflow, and purifying the air. The new HVA system units carry a MERV rating of 8 and an EER rating of 11.2, which is much better than our current 15-plus-year-old units. These units will be dramatically improve airflow and better filtration in our grand ballroom. One unit has already been replaced because it went bad last year, and we already replaced that one. And the second one is in that time frame where the heat exchanger just went out, so we're going to be replacing that one also. Just as a note, as we're doing things around the fairgrounds, in fall of 2021, we did replace 2 old hang-down furnaces in the air conditioning unit on the roof of the 4-H Community Center. That has drastically improved the air quality in our other buildings. So that's a big concern of the fair right now is air quality, because they were the old hang-down furnaces, no filters. So we replaced that in the 4-H building also. So the purpose of our roof replacement is to preserve our ballroom. The current original roof on the ballroom is over 50 years old, and it is leaking in multiple areas. Over the years, we have done repairs. We had done to the whole roof and then small repairs to where the leaks are. We are at that point in our time where we need to full replacement is necessary. As we will replace the roof with a TPO roof system, we will also add 6 inches of insulation to the entire roof. As of right now, there is really no insulation left. After all those years inside, it was just that slight film they put underneath. During this project, we will also take off the 2 HVAC units that are on the roof and move to the ground on the north side of the building. As with the HVAC project, our goal is to reduce our expenses by adding insulation to the roof, which will make our new HVAC system more efficient and reduce our carbon footprint. When designing the roof, we have taken into consideration on adding solar panels in the future. Project planning, excuse me, and funding. Planning of the projects at the fairgrounds is overseen by our 24-member board of directors and the general manager. Our board members consist of business people, electricians, construction managers, contractors. This team reviews the designs and multiple bids of all projects. Funding that is needed comes out of our capital improvements funds. The capital improvement fund comes from donations that must be used only for capital improvements and fundraising events like our Blue Ribbon fundraiser dinner, which we just had last Saturday, and our upcoming blue ribbon breakfast and auction. Our board takes great pride in the thousands of hours they volunteer each year to keep our expenses down, so we continue to make improvements and continue with our mission. And if for those of you that don't know what our mission is, our original mission statement read, the Dubuque County Fair Association is a nonprofit organization. It is a community resource that exists to educate and promote the culture and heritage of Dubuque County while uniting urban and rural communities in celebration. As we have grown, as our mission statement has also grown, we exist now to bring people together and provide an atmosphere where family traditions are created and continued. The core values of the fair, they're very simple. It's about family, it's about friends, traditions, and celebrating our great agricultural heritage. We feel that the fairgrounds has a strong social impact on the community. We strive to bring family-friendly events to our facility and our community. The Dubuque County Fair Association provides a low-cost facility for family events and large community events, plus national and regional events. Our annual 6-day fair is a community event that attracts over 60,000 people this year. Will be our 69th year. We're very excited to get to our 100th. I don't think I'll be around, but it'll be an exciting time. The DCF provides fundraising opportunities for over 20 local nonprofit organizations each year, giving them the support to carry out their missions as well. Economic impact to our community, like events like Snowcross, Torque Fest, car races, and our annual fair, fill our local hotels, restaurants, and other tourist attractions with guests from many different states. The Snowcross event alone, we have been told, has a $1.5 million economic impact to our communities. Just a little more quick information. The events held in 2021, we had 217 days with events in them. We have a 59% usage of our grounds. And in those days, in those 217 days, we had 81 events. Events booked in 2022, as of a couple of days ago, we already have 197 days of events planned, so we got 54% usage. In those 197 days, we will hold 243 events. So we're a very busy event center, good for the local economy. Our goal for 22 is, my goal is to add another 20 events. So we'll keep going. As we build for the future, one of the things we're doing is funding has been set aside to install new drop ceiling and lights in our community center, which will make that even a better building to rent out and to hold other things like weddings and that. Projects in discussion. We are finalizing plans on updating the McDermott building to make it a year-round rentable building. This building will be for smaller events. One of the things we don't have is a place for 25 people to 75 people that's affordable to our community. So we're going to make this building and make it a full year-round facility for like baby showers, graduations, and that. Looking forward, I just want to let you know our association and facilities has been a part of this community since 1953. We have made a difference to so many 4-H and FFA youth. We have been also been a place of memories for so many others, and will continue to make an impact in our community, both in economic and personal impact to thousands of people's lives. Just a little history of the fairgrounds. I'm very proud of it, and so is our board.
Thank you, Kevin. Some of the events have been astronomical, I'd have to say. The Torque Fest, I remember when it started, and I thought, this really isn't going to go anywhere, and it's absolutely unbelievable what it is now.
Yep, it has really grown. Just talking to John Wells, he's the promoter of it now, and it looks like a very exciting year again this year. Looking forward to a lot of that. We're in the plans of trying to get negotiations, I should say, to get 4 more national events like that, which is really good for our local economy. But the board puts in so much time and effort so we can keep our costs down, so we are affordable for our community.
Kevin, can you talk a little bit more about your board and your volunteers?
Well, we have 24 board members. And like I said before, they're made up of business people, electricians and all that. We also have associate directors. They don't have a voting power, but they can put in their opinions on different projects we're going to be doing. They can do everything but vote. And we have a lot of younger associate members. So, you know, what I think is good at the fair or good at any event as a 65-year-old person is a heck of a lot different than what a 17, 18, 19, 30-year-olds is. So the core of the fair never changes, but how we entertain our guests, what events we have, that's what we use associate members for. And we do have a junior board, which is for kids anything under 18 and down. And I think we have 9 on that. So that's a lot of youth, and they volunteer a lot of their time also.
Very good. Ann, do you have anything?
Absolutely. Good morning, Kevin. Sorry I'm not there with you, and I'll stop out to the fair office and pick up the items we talked about on Saturday, if that'll be okay.
No problem.
Okay, and I truly appreciate how young your board is and the young people that were there even on Saturday evening. You do have that vibrancy of young people, and I find that to be different than many other things that I can choose to spend my time at. There's always going to be young folks at the fair and involved with your fair board. I also, just a comment, I support the work you're doing here. I would like to see you develop a long-term relationship and financial ask with the county over time. So our federal dollars go for several more years, and I think we should be engaged with you. We're not on your board, but to know what the long-range plan is and to be at this. I think we gave you $20,000 as a purchase of services recently, but looking at the ARPA fund. So that's my wish, is that we establish a pattern of some significant relationship building with the fair board, because I think that you are vital to tourism. And I'm just going to end my comment with I guess, an anecdotal story, but Snowcross this winter, great attendance, I think. And so my son, who's a doctor in this community, took a new physician who came to Dubuque from Michigan. And this new physician was so incredibly excited that there was a Snowcross event. This was like dropped in his lap, that there was something that, I mean, he was delighted that there was this opportunity. So out to the Snowcross they went. And of course, my son, you know, this isn't maybe his top priority, but he said that doctor was head to toe, clearly from Michigan, spent the whole day at Snowcross. And so well done that we help you. I mean, you're doing things that are more than tourism. They're helping people that we recruit find a home here and stretch what we're presenting as opportunities for people to be engaged in the community, just for activities. So thank you. I think that's an important piece of work that you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And just talking about Snowcross, we were able to land a second Snowcross, which is this weekend. So it's kind of morphed off the first one, and we have a second one that we'll be having. As long as we do a good job with them this year, we will have this as a yearly event. So we'll have 2 Snowcrosses every year. So we'll make a little more use of all that water we put on the track as snow. So, but we encourage people to come out to our meetings. They're open to the public, because it's really, you know, as much as it's the Dubuque County Fair Association, this is a community centered place. So I love ideas. My office is always open for anybody to come in, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Come in and tell me, because I don't know what to fix. We don't know what to fix if they don't tell us. So I appreciate all comments from everybody.
This Snowcross this weekend is for young adults.
It covers all ages. I thought it was just young adults, but there is a 64-year-old gentleman racing. So being 65, he's a braver man than I am. But it is a lot of young. This Midwest Snowcross series really likes to promote the youth. So I know they're in their annual banquet, they're going to have like a parade of the different age classes, and they are pretty young. So.
Okay. I have
My last
nothing
question to
further.
make sure, we've had some changes in applications. I don't believe yours has changed. And so your ask right now is for 200,000, is that correct?
That is correct. The prices have went up. You know, we all realize that. We had one air conditioning or one HVA system that replaced 5 months ago, and we just ordered another one to replace, and it's already went up like $1,400. So we know it won't cover the whole thing, but we're looking for just support. If you can help us out, that would be greatly appreciated. You know, we want, like I said, we want to be around here to celebrate our 100th anniversary, and we need to do some of these things. And we've been continually doing things for the last 5 years to really improve our grounds. Before we ever go to add another building, I want to make sure everything there is good to go before we add on.
Anything else, Ann?
Well, I would just note, Kevin, that, this is the way you brought your grant request to us was under the criteria of supporting the public health response, because I know what you're talking about in increasing airflow and air filtration. But I also think you fit really well under other categories, tourism, workforce. I think you add that component as well. So when we decide to, whatever we're going to decide about your grant, I think you fit many categories. And to me, that was significant in my review of your actual ARPA application. I appreciate your presentation today, and of course, all the work that you're doing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Kevin?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Question for my colleagues and or those that have been organizing the requests. Do we have a plan of attack, whether we're going to, offer support or dollar amounts at this time, collectively grab them? Do we have any thought process on that?
I thank you, Supervisor Wickham. I believe that is a decision up to the Board of Supervisors. We'll respond and assist you in any of those ways that you decide to move forward, whether that's making decisions as you hear these presentations or waiting for some period to get through this first group. Whatever you want, we'll respond to that, but we're not providing you. I don't have a recommendation for you whether you should be making a decision right now or waiting to hear more of these and then making some initial about this grouping. You can do either one of those.
Thanks for that background.
I would suggest waiting till we hear from those people we have today and maybe get together and decide on those 4. And then next week we have another 4 set up and kind of discuss it amongst ourselves.
So not necessarily waiting till the end, but small batches.
Yeah, small batches and go through it
Okay.
that way.
I'm open to that.
Ann?
Well, I think we're still going to eventually come to that difficult decision that we just keep kicking down the road, which is, do we intend to give a little sum to all, or do we intend to set priorities? And that discussion still hasn't been framed well. We've attempted it several times, but we've not come to conclusion. So I think it's important. I'm not in charge of inviting people in and how that's being done. I think maybe that's a question for Ed. You said there's a group. I don't know if that means the folks here today, or if it's the people that are coming next week as well. So I don't know what the grouping is.
Supervisor McDonough, the board had made a decision to begin going through the applications under the ARPA category, support the public health response from our external partners. And there are right around 19 of those applications. Several of those 19, 3 of them are from the Community Foundation you're going to hear from. So it's slightly smaller group of organizations. And when I said that grouping, and perhaps I was addressing that group of those external applications support the public health response. And those applications are on that list because that is the way that they self-selected at the time that they applied. We did not put them into that category. That was the way that they completed their application.
So when we talk about a group to hear from, it would be those that self-selected, support the public health response. And then that would maybe be a time to, I guess, seeing those applications determine which we might be supporting. Or asking more information from this. I think all of these grants have changed over time, which is appropriate. As people, as we come out of this, no one's staying stationary, likely waiting for us to make the full gift to them. But so that's how I kind of see this. Let's maybe pause after we get through the public health response. And we have 19, you say, and then we can take that time to determine how that fits inside a greater priority, perhaps.
We have a slide queued up.
That's not what I heard Supervisor Potoff recommend that I supported. So maybe back to at least what I thought we had consensus on was making decisions on a short, small group that presents within a week, not batching larger groups of 19. But what was your intent, Supervisor Potoff? Seems
My
different
intent
than
would
Supervisor
be
McDonough.
to go over the 4 that present today and come to a decision with just those 4
within
within a week or
okay,
whatever. And then we hear the next group and try to make some decisions that we're moving forward all the time, that we're not just keep backlogging.
I would support that as well.
Can I ask my colleagues then, decisions that we make now, we have a finite amount of money. And so decisions that we make now, are they going to be in the spreadsheet form where they can be increased or reduced as we get through the many weeks that this will take? So let's say I'm the final person to be heard in the final category and there's no funding left. Is that what likely could occur?
Well, that would obviously be a possibility where we would go back and maybe reduce some funding that we had initially, agreed upon. If we would think that last person would be,
I think two things. One, I think it'd be important for all of us in the process, including staff and other elected officials that have been, kind of shepherding this process, to know how much funds are available and how many applicants are there. So, kind of knowing what the score is as we go, so that you don't penalize necessarily the last presenter. The second piece is we have asked elected officials and staff, the group putting together, to bring us the applications so that the supervisors wouldn't be necessarily indicating priority or preferences, which we all have. And so if we can keep doing those things, I think we'll be in good shape to hopefully give a fair representation and presentation to those that are in front of us in the funding. But to wait till the end, it makes it much more difficult.
Well, we did wait until the end in the Fund 10. We had many applications there and we juggled those just fine. I think those were a good, more than a dozen. And so we made maybe some preliminary ideas, but at the end, things were adjusted based on final amount. Do you remember the spreadsheet day where we just did go and things went up and things went down based on those final grants? And those were our brain health Fund 10 balances that we made with the region. So we do have some priority for looking at that, and some folks didn't get any funding from that priority.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that process. This is about 5 times larger than that process, if not more. And I think you have 2 supervisors who have stated their intent to move forward in a certain way. Chair, how long would you like to discuss this?
I'm just looking, how many, well, you had at least 4 that have received funding through purchase of service or the mental health.
Supervisor Potoff, I can't really hear your question. Or is it a comment? I'm just not following you well right now.
Sorry, I was just looking at the ones that had received funding. Sorry about that. So there isn't 19 really. In public health respond, there'd be one.
I mean, supervisors, right now, we're bringing these to you alphabetically, so we don't really have a rhyme or reason other than how they were sorted. I would ask if we can table this conversation until after the presentations, because we do have 3 people who were on.
Right.
Well, well, we have consensus. We just don't have unanimous decisions. So if Supervisor Potoff would want to talk about it more, fine, but I think there's 2 supervisors that.
Just trying to figure out how many we actually have left to hear.
Well,
It's not 19.
Well, if you keep throwing internal ones, it's about 80.
I'm just talking the external. So, but I would still prefer to just discuss at least an overview of the 4 we have today to see where there's consensus, where there's not.
The following week.
Right. We don't even have to set an amount, just, okay, we think all 4 of these are worthy, or maybe this one isn't worthy, where we just hit a consensus and, okay, we can move forward, that we have consensus on 3 of the 4, or 2 of the 4, or whatever. And then we can always go back and approve the funding portion of it.
But review them and hopefully make some types of decisions the following week.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
In this category, there are 15 individual entities asking for funding in the external.
Right, Community Foundation has 3.
15 there's 15 total out of the 19. So there's 19 total asked, 15 entities.
And I think when we hear from the community foundation, we're going to see that they likely don't have 3, or they don't, there's significant changes. So I'd say let's let every day go and percolate this, because there's been significant changes in some of these grant applications, and all we're doing right now is, trying to decide if we're going to pick winners and losers, as compared to, if I understand what you're saying right now, Supervisor Potoff, you wanted just to some general discussion and not hard, fast numbers next week. Is that what we're at?
I think that would work better. At least we'd have the ones that we feel we want to support. And then we would be able to adjust the numbers as we put it all together, instead of your scenario waiting, the last person comes in and then we're going back to readjust the numbers. I think it'd be better to get the pool of the ones that we want to support, and then we can decide how much we're going to support each of those.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we can do the way we did brain health for all of this, but I'm not inclined to decide yes or no on 4 grant applications at a time.
No, I think that would be the easiest way to go. Jay kind of feels that would probably be advantageous also. So I think we will discuss it next week over these 4. And if it doesn't appear that it's going to work, we can change it at that time. But for now, we will move forward in that direction, because we definitely have to move anyway.
Correct.
So we'll move to our next presentation, would be the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. Nancy.
Thank you, Harley. Thank you for this opportunity to present our ARPA application. It has changed actually quite drastically since we first submitted it, and for a number of reasons. The needs have changed. We've been able to secure some funding for some things, and we really feel there is, because the dollars are more competitive, we feel what we're focusing on, which is going to be grade level reading and summer learning, is in a crisis situation, and we really need your help to address that. Joining me today is Alex Baum, who's the Director of Initiatives, and on the Zoom is Cynthia Wernberg, who is our Every Child Reads coordinator, and she had icy roads out by her, so she's zooming in. Our next slide, is that how we do this, or do I push them? Okay, this is probably a great slide after you've shared that we have submitted 3 applications, to think about how we work. We are an umbrella organization. We serve many nonprofits, and we usually look at like a systems issue. And so in this case, we're going to be looking at grade level reading. Restorative Strategies, that also had an application there, is housed in our office. And so that's how that got connected to us. And then there's also the books in hand. We're going to really focus today on the summer learning. We've been before you in past times and shared this with you. Just real quick, we use a collective impact model to address systemic needs, and we've been very successful. We are the backbone organization in this process, and we've, Vision to Learn. Now 5,000 children in our region have had an eye exam and have 2 pair of glasses, whereas before 60% of the kids who needed to go to the eye doctor were not going. Reengage Dubuque has drastically changed the number of kids who are dropping out, but even more so, and almost in half, more so is the kids who have re-engaged and gone back to college. And then another one would be Opportunity Dubuque. Probably an interesting thing about this, we are not direct service. We are that backbone, and this typically takes a process like this about 3 years to really transform a system, and then we have an exit strategy. So Vision to Learn is now a standalone nonprofit. Reengage Dubuque is co-owned by NICC and the school district, and Opportunity Dubuque is owned by GDDC. So we take that issue, we bring the players together, we use data, continuous communication, mutually reinforcing activities to really take care of the structural changes, the relationship changes, and then transform. For instance, a mental model in this situation would be high school dropouts are now seen by the school district actually as an asset of keeping that student in the school rather than, oh my gosh, this kid is a problem. So just how we work and why we would have 3 applications is that we are working with other nonprofits, and you will see in our application in this case that the funding also goes to more than us. So the pressing need, early childhood education, is in crisis after COVID. And I really want to raise the red flag here. Our kids are not thriving in school. They are not succeeding. And summer programming is one area the community can really make a difference. And I don't know if you had a chance to watch the little video that I shared, but it's called Summer Slide. And especially our low income and vulnerable kids, each year they get farther and farther behind. So why 3rd grade reading proficiency? Next slide. It enables the students to shift from learning to read to reading to learn. In 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, you're learning to read. In 4th grade, you need to be able to read to learn. And if you're not there, it's really a huge problem. It's one of the most important predictors of high school graduation and career success. Students who are not proficient by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school. And in fact, some states accurately predict their future prison populations based on 3rd grade reading scores. And it makes sense. If you can't read, you can't learn, you don't graduate, you don't get the skills you need to get a job, you fall behind, you don't thrive. 88% of students who fail to earn a high school diploma were struggling readers in 3rd grade. So this 3rd grade is a milestone that we as a community need to make sure that kids are achieving. Next slide. Why summer learning? The school district, their focus, their funding is September to May. But what we're finding, and the research shows, that low income students lose over 2 months in reading ability over the summer. And by the end of 5th grade, they are nearly 3 grade levels behind. And there's no magic potion here. I'm going to show you, we can actually go to the next slide, some startling numbers. The impact of COVID on reading percent of students who aren't proficient. 1920 kindergartners, 38%. It's now 59. 3rd graders, 38% were not proficient. Now they're 50%. This is in 1 year's time, and it continues to go down. There is urgency. There is a need for immediate action. The next slide shows you that kids K through 5 as of January of 22, 51%, next slide please, are not proficient. So this is across the school district, and it is not going away. Next slide. Challenges now will produce worse outcomes in middle school and high school. And the biggest impact is on our most marginalized populations. Our Black and African American students are not proficient at 70%, Pacific Islanders 88%, and our low socioeconomic status students are at 55%. Next slide. There's approximately 2,300 students in kindergarten through 5th grade who are not meeting that benchmark of grade level reading. During 2021 in the summer, the Dubuque Community School District, St. Mark's, and the Dream Center, who are our three main providers of summer learning, served 377 students. At best, the summer programming addressed 16% of the need. And I think another challenge here is we're not necessarily reaching the kids who need this most. It takes a lot more energy to get our students who are not proficient than just to get the general population to come to summer reading. So what are the needs? We aren't reaching enough kids. We're not necessarily reaching the right kids. Our programming is very fragmented. We've got different programs going on and navigating challenges. So even people being aware of it, transportation, how are we reaching out to parents? How are we getting the kids there? This is a perfect example of a place where bringing people together, working together to create a community-wide, a county-wide collaboration with coordinated outreach, coordinated marketing, more space, the school district really working with our nonprofits to make sure that the curriculums and the teaching staff are up to snuff is critical for this to be successful. Our neighbors, Cedar Rapids and Quad City, have much more developed programs and stronger results, and we would really like to create what they have, which is a community-wide, and I would say a county-wide system, so every child who needs it can get access to summer reading, quality summer reading programs. So our original budget, which included books in hand, the restorative strategies, data, and summer programming, was $1,020,000. What we are asking you for now is to focus on summer attendance. It is so critical. $200,000 a year for 3 years. The coordination and programming each year will be bringing those groups together, determining, does there need to be a summer coordinator? How are we going to transport these kids? How are we going to work together to create this system of having summer? And then in this application, we're asking for $50,000 for St. Mark's and $50,000 for the Dream Center. It costs these two organizations approximately $1,000 plus per student, and we would love to have them be able to, they've got kids that they can't afford to take in. An exciting thing about this ask is we are working with a donor who has interest in this issue and has significant capacity to create an endowment for summer forever learning. What we need to be able to show him is that as a community, as a county, we have a plan. It is moving forward. We are going to be successful. I will share in Cedar Rapids, the Zach Johnson Foundation, so the golfer, he supports summer in a big way between his foundation and a $200,000 golf outing. And what we would really love to have for our summer is, because the school district cannot own this completely, they need this to be a community program, is to have not only government money, not only Dubuque Community School money, but private donor money. And I believe there's potential to make that happen. So with that quick run through, happy to answer any questions, and Alex and Cynthia are here also.
Thank you, Nancy. Just a quick, I guess, not following how you're going to do this. What are you going to do?
Right. So this is our typical model. Harley is, brain health, vision to learn is, and we have been working on grade level reading for a while and had made some strides in summer, and then COVID hit. What needs to happen, and we met with the school district last week, they're totally on board. They'll be at the table to have the different providers, the different players come to the table, and we just keep working on, here are the needs, here's solutions, here's various models, who needs to do what, how do we work better together? And we coordinate it all, and we, manage the communication. It's not something you can like put in the shelf and look at it. It's a process. And a great example would be the changes that happened in the jail with brain health. And both Sheriff Kennedy and the police chief and Jeremy will say that it took us bringing everybody to the table and saying, this is our common agenda. And then because everyone's there, you got to kind of step up to the plate and say, okay, you're going to do this. Well, we're going to do this. And things change and you bring it. And then we bring the expertise, the research, the data, and just keep them holding people accountable and moving along. And, you know, I would say again, you know, vision to learn, re-engage Dubuque. If nobody's bringing people together to create this comprehensive coordinated approach, it's not going to happen. The school district will continue to do what they're doing, St. Mark's, the Dream Center, and it's not good enough. And they all know it. And they are all asking for a better mousetrap for what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay. From the 20,000 foot level, I understand what you're saying. Dream Center obviously just received a large amount of money from the Central region for this. Yes, including them in yours, they're already funded for it. St. Mark's also has received $25,000.
But if you figure we want them to have
Service.
250 kids and it's $1,000 a kid. And this is summer. So this is, you know, the money they've received is not specifically for summer. For everybody, summer is an add-on. The school district, it's absolutely an add-on. I'll give you a great example with the need for more dollars for St. Mark's and the Dream Center. We all want them to have certified teachers at the table. The school district is having a hard time hiring certified teachers for summer with COVID and all the stress, and they're paying union wages. And we've got the Dream Center in St. Mark's offering somewhere, I don't know exactly, but I believe it's somewhere between $15 and $20 an hour to be able to hire the right people and to have a summer coordinator. I would suggest they will not be able to take these extra 50 kids that these dollars will pay for if someone doesn't fund it. That, I guess that would be the bottom line. So that's why we would ask you to consider it. And it's 250, so it's like, it's a lot of money.
Supervisor Potoff, can I make just respond to your comment about how we've already given funding to some folks with the region? All of the money that was given through the region must be spent and is being billed right now to be spent by the end of June. It isn't connected in any way to summer programming. So the summer programming is a separate request that St. Mark has brought to us in the past that we have done through purchase of services in the past. So it's my opinion that nothing that we've given them to date has anything to do with summer learning.
For the Dream Center.
Dream Center and St. Mark, both. Those are both programming through the regional dollars that is to be expended by the end of June, like by June 15th.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. You have anything, Jay?
Both my parents were educators, so very much supportive of education and education initiatives. My question is a little bit about, the district or the county as a whole. So Dubuque and Western Dubuque, is your proposal just for Dubuque community schools, or does it also include Western Dubuque? Maybe you could elaborate.
Sure. It also includes the Western Dubuque School District. We actually have an Every Child Reads staff person that's out in Dyersville part-time. It's Jessica Pape. We do quite a bit of work out there, very engaged. St. Mark's actually has summer learning out there. We would like to see more learning across the county that's easily accessible, that people can have transportation to. Transportation, as you know, in our first application was a huge ask, and it's a huge issue and a huge problem, but I understand these dollars are competitive and you need to make big choices. And we see, especially, the urgency this summer to get kids into those programs is critical. We also have discovered that the RTA has some capacity to transport kids. And we're also talking to the school district about how can they work with us to get kids to the St. Mark's, the Dream Center. So we're working on transportation issues. but this is the bottom line. We've got to come up with this comprehensive coordinated system, and we need to get the kids into the programs. Dream Center and St. Mark's do have exceptional programs and are getting the kids' scores to go up. So that's the investment. We would love to see, and we hope to be able to accomplish, that we work with all nonprofits and all organizations that have summer activities to start to incorporate reading and other learning in their programs. So rather than a park district program being, you know, all recreation, how do we bring books to the table? How do we teach the AmeriCorps or the others that work there how to educate the kids? That's the bigger community thinking.
But on the bigger community thinking, I do have another question. I'm not sure if you can help me with this or not. It's probably more directed to school districts and their boards. So we have 2 school districts in Dubuque County with boards, and then certainly Holy Family on the private side. And they're elected officials. They have taxing authority, and they do tax and collect those taxes for educational purposes. They also, just like the city of Dubuque and Dubuque County and many of the other cities in Dubuque, all the cities in Dubuque County, received American Rescue funds. And so as I go out to Dubuque's district's website and Western Dubuque's website, I see some of the things they're doing. Some are a little more clear. I can actually put dollar amounts on Western Dubuque's. The school district, Dubuque School District's a little less clear from my vantage point, just you know, looking out at the dollars they're spending. But Dubuque has received more funding than we have for American Rescue Funds. So my question possibly to you, if you feel you want to wade into this, is why should the county step in when they've actually received more money than we have and their main goal is education and reading? Why add on dollars?
That's an excellent question. I will try to answer it from what I see. The school district currently has a summer program, but it's only for first grade students. And it's a short day. I believe it's from 9 to noon, and you can stay till 2 for enrichment. But if you're a low income family, you might not have, like, I can leave my job at 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock and drop off my kid and pick them up. I can have resources to have a babysitter. We don't feel that it's enough, that we need these all-day programs, that we absolutely need it to be more than first grade. And we also absolutely need to target those children who are non-proficient in reading, and spend that time and energy of engaging those families, helping the families understand this is a wonderful opportunity for your kid, and make sure that there's transportation and there's all-day care for that child so that they can attend. I do understand the school district is under an incredible amount of stress. I saw somewhere that the worst job in America right now is being a school superintendent. But their focus, and they're the first to tell you, our focus has to be the school year. That's our funding streams. That's what we do. That's, I guess, the best I can do it, and you'd have to talk to them.
Thank you.
I will say, I believe this is a crisis. I mean, if we don't capture these kids right now and help them learn to read, they're not going to magically get over this and, you know, in 5th grade, you know, have this. This is a milestone that must be reached. And I think as a community, we've got to step up to the plate and take care of it.
Ann, do you have anything?
Well, I would suggest that this is an invitation to participate in high-level work that has immediate and ongoing impact. If this is something that my colleagues would like to look at further, I would, and I've already taken as an individual supervisor those steps. Yesterday, I attended a meeting with, it was online with Cindy Wierenberg, who's here at the Community Foundation online with us. And I've also reached out to school board members, both in Western Dubuque and in Dubuque, and am putting together some meetings to talk about the Community Foundation's proposal and doing the same filter that Supervisor Wickham is talking about. What are you doing with your federal dollars? That can be a conversation where we can see, you know, what Nancy is telling us is that we need a community, a county-wide solution, and that it's bigger than any one of these pieces can accomplish. And so that's what I'm working on. And I think that before we spend dollars on this, we need to quickly get an assessment, and we could do a work session. We're not the educators, but we do have to prioritize how we spend limited rescue dollars. And to me, this seems like a good use of the funds. One thing we know is that the Community Foundation does convene high-level, otherwise siloed nonprofits and schools to make change occur. And I think we see the result of that in brain health and with law enforcement brain health extension into the jail. So I'm not ready to vote today. I know that Nancy has very much a need. If we're going to impact this summer coming up, we need to be taking steps quickly to be helpful for the upcoming summer. But I'm intending to do some work to be sure that this is a good fit for our rescue funds. And if either of you or both, if we want to convene those taxing authorities to have that discussion here, I think they'd likely come and explain how they have only the capacity to live. Yesterday, I think Cindy conversation was the school was going to have, they were going to invite up to 700 kids, which is just a mere fraction. And they'll probably have not even half those people respond, but it's a fraction of what we're being faced with. And it is directly related to COVID. So it's highest use for federal dollars.
What was the total ask again, Nancy? I'm sorry.
200,000 a year for 3 years.
600,000.
Nancy, can you give me an idea to get this donor interested? Do you just need to get a plan in place? Or, you know, sometimes when it's good to be the matching dollars, but I don't know if that's what your ask is, for us to be the match, or do we just need to show some work?
I've got some heavy lifting to do to get him to buy in. We need some success. We need to have him be able to say, this is something that I might be willing to put a large endowment together to, and I
Nancy,
work with him and,
Nancy.
sorry.
I have difficulty hearing.
I'm sorry. We need something in place. I mean, it's, and rightfully so. He's thinking about millions of dollars and he wants to see, okay, this is something that's sustainable, it's comprehensive, it's having positive outcomes, and we have got a lot of work to get to that point. I wish I could tell you something different.
Nancy, if we did want to have a work session about this, so take this grant application and dig into it a little bit more, could you help us bring together the partners to have that
Absolutely.
further discussion?
Absolutely.
Maybe just make sure I'm clear, kind of tying back to my last question related to this, the public school districts. The funding for these initiatives, these educational initiatives, would be routed or partnered with non-school district entities, right?
Right.
And so most likely, I don't know this for a fact, the Dubuque Community School Districts and Western Dubuque Community School Districts don't fund these entities for educational pieces. They fund internally, most likely.
Right. That's currently, but they could.
They could. And so your proposal, though, is to provide funding and resources outside of the school district's, so to speak, authority and or budgeting to allow that to be a success point.
The school districts both absolutely know that there's the need for the St. Mark's and the Dream Center and appreciate and are seeing it as a gap filler, but they are not funding it.
Yeah, it's probably hard to pull that trigger when they have other
Right.
people behind them saying, we'd like funding for this, this, and this. Whereas the county oversees, similar to your
Right.
nonprofit, many other varied initiatives.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. Next, we'll have a presentation from Dubuque County firefighters, Kevin Smith.
Hi, my name is Kevin Schmidt. Thank you very much for allowing me to come present this. I think it's a huge need. Everything else is also a huge need, but we're talking about life of people here. My proposal is $700,000 to fund a recruitment effort for volunteer EMS, fire and EMS in Dubuque County. It's a huge need. I just handed you all a flyer, or I'm sorry, a paper that I put out, built just Sunday night, actually, talked to all the fire chiefs. The number of calls, the number of people that they would put on right now without even batting an eye. And like I say, the need that's out there. Where I come up with my money is $100,000 was for mass education and try to elicit recruits for the fire and EMS. Then I come up with, and I am a little wrong on things. I had 12 volunteer departments that I thought put $50,000 in each department for training. If each department had 3 paramedics that wanted to go through, that's about $45,000. Which would chew up $50,000 pretty quick. But I also found out that there's 2 towns that have their EMS separate from their fire. So they're 2 separate entities. So there's actually 14 entities that would benefit from this. And as you can see, Dyersville, for example, they don't need anyone on their fire side. They're strong on their fire. They don't do anything. They just go and help with EMS. But Dyersville ambulance, Bi-County ambulance, they have 17 on their current roster. They do 470 calls with 17 people, and they're very short. They need help. They need it bad. And Asbury, again, the same way. They're very short, very need a lot. They can use more people. I was just at Holy Cross's breakfast over the weekend, and they just handed out a piece of paper in everybody's breakfast that they're looking for volunteers. It's one way of trying to recruit. Problem I see is most people don't know how to volunteer, where to volunteer. I'd like to be a volunteer fireman, but there's never anybody at that fire station. How do I find out? So it's more of an education to learn how to volunteer. And, I do know that there's people think that, in time there will be no volunteers. Well, I disagree with that in the fact that we're not going to have paid firefighters throughout the county. We're not going to have, and to have a central ambulance, they're gonna have to wait 20, 25 minutes for an ambulance to show up at some of these areas in the county. So I do believe that there's still gonna be a need. And if that happens, that's gonna be 10 plus 20 years down the road. We need someone between now and then. I just found out last night that, and I didn't have a chance to indulge in it too much, but Wisconsin is just using just shy of $30 million of their rescue money for EMS volunteers and recruitment and that stuff. So with the state of Wisconsin, is if you look up the WEMSA, Wisconsin EMS Association website, that's where I saw it. They're just shy of $30 million that the state is putting in for funding for this exact plan that I don't know if it's exact plan, but like I said, I just in calling and talking to the fire chiefs about all this, and seeing the number of people that we need. I've been on Dubuque Fire for 31 years. I retired from there 2 years ago. I've been on Sherrill Fire Department for 12 years now. And last year I responded to 76 calls or more. And out of the 218 that we had, I responded to 76 of them. And a lot of those times, we'll be short down to a couple people responding on a call. It's difficult. There's a need, and you're not needed until you're needed. That's the unfortunate thing. Nobody thinks about the fire department, or nobody thinks about an ambulance until they dial 911 and they want someone to respond. Well, there has to be someone to respond. And I just feel it's a huge need that we need to get more people involved, educate more people, get more people involved, and try to get them engaged. And does anybody have any questions, I guess, for me?
I think I know, but the current roster, are those all volunteers?
The current roster is volunteers. Obviously, they're not all they're active volunteers, but there's different levels of active in a department. You know, generally, the old saying on volunteers, 10% does 90%, and that's very true. Even, you know, I mean, in Cheryl, I'll use a Cheryl example. We have 10 extremely active people, and we have 5 mediocres, 10 mediocres, and we have some that are very inactive. Not saying that any one of them get any less credit than the other, but the problem is we need more active people, and we need more people to get the active people. I was talking to Cascade EMS. They do 256 calls a year, and they have 10 people on their roster. The gentleman, Mike Donovan, who runs it down there, he did 160 calls himself last year. That's they're so strapped. Rife Ambulance Service, when they went out of business, I don't know if they went out of business or whatever you call it, they sold their ambulance service to Farley, and they sold their ambulance service to the city of Cascade. So that's when they took it over. I don't know how many, a couple of years ago. I'm not for sure how long ago. But again, Cascade EMS is totally separate from Cascade Fire. They're both city entities, but they're separate. And then Farley, they inherited Rife Ambulance Service in their fire department. They have EMS and they have dual people in that. But the only other one that's totally separate is by county. They cover Dyersville, New Vienna, and Worthington. They cover all 3 of those towns that don't have a transporting ambulance.
Comments or questions, but maybe if you were Supervisor McDonough, want to jump in?
I guess I got one more thing, if you don't, sorry. As far as a number, the $700,000, I don't know if those numbers are accurate. I don't know how to put a number on the education level or the mass mailings or TV or whatever. I'd have no idea how much a campaign would cost for that. And as far as dollars for, you know, if each department were to get a large number of people to come on, and several do, right now, paramedic is about $13,000 to $14,000 to become a paramedic. And that's not even the EMT level. EMT is $1,500. So if you wanted to go from being a layperson to a paramedic, you're looking at pushing $15,000 that a fire department or a town would have to come up for each person that would want to do that. It's a huge time commitment. EMT is about 4 months. Paramedic is a year. And there's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of education. And, you know, you're doing it for a volunteer purpose. And it's a huge commitment. I don't know if we can get people to do that. I hope so. There's a lot of volunteers out there in the rural departments that have went to there just for that reason. And I give them a lot of credit. So go ahead. Any questions?
Well, the biggest obstacle is the time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the biggest thing years ago. If you could pick up a hose and spray it, you were a fireman.
Yep.
Well, now with all the restrictions and training requirements, it's turned around and it's killing the volunteer fire departments because these younger people don't have the time to do this. They're trying to raise families, they're working. But I don't know that the volunteers are there to be had, to be honest with you, Kevin. I'm sure there's some, but like I said, the time constraints are the biggest issue facing volunteers right now. It's difficult to get people to training, to CPR recertification. It's a constant flow all the time.
Mm-hmm. I get it. I understand. It is a huge commitment. And again, if we got, you know, if each department got 2 or 3 people, you know, it's pretty huge. You know, you can't go into a fire until you have at least firefighter 1 before you can wear a SCBA air pack. And that's, you know, people can get through that in a couple months. It doesn't cost anything. It's some time. You know, so for the fire side of it. And again, we're looking for fire and EMS for the most part. EMS is the big thing because that's the most demanding, and it is 80% of the calls. 75 to 80% of the calls are EMS calls. And again, everyone in here never thinks anything about a volunteer ambulance service until they need them. And then they say, huh, is that all that's here? Or when I go on calls, a lot of times people think, well, you were up anyway. You know, you're on duty, you're up anyway. No, we're all volunteer. I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to come and help you. And they don't realize that. People don't realize that as a general rule. And that may be this education may be the fact that, hey, these are all volunteers. Maybe I don't need to go because I have a toothache or because I have a sore thumb. I can wait till 8 o'clock in the morning and maybe get a ride from someone. You know, we have them calls as well. So,
Ann, did you have anything?
Kevin, thank you for being here with us today, and I'll thank you publicly for the first time publicly for this application. I've told you that privately several times before, but I think you bring to us, and you are standing before us, telling us about this urgent and unmet need. And I know that you don't have the solution, but I really am appreciative that you won't back down off the importance of sharing that this is something supervisors might be able to be involved in, right? So the Tom Hancock grant is something that this board has funded, I think 4 years, for sure 3. And that could have an additional component added to it that is earmarked for some of the things you're talking about, each department or departments on rotation, to have scholarship funding, to have recruitment dollars, so that the departments could be applying for that as well. I just would say to you again that I think this isn't the ability for the supervisors doesn't exist to fix this, but we should be helping the communities find the solution if there is one to be found. So whether we fund a scholarship for someone from each community to do the training on a rotating basis. You know, Tom Berger is not able to be with us here today, but again, we might do more work on this application to have a work session and to bring it. We meet quarterly with the mayors, and we could certainly, there's hardly, I think you go to the monthly fire department meetings. I mean, I don't think we should just set this aside. You're bringing this forward and are persistent in raising this as a need. And, you know, oddly, we were at 2 drive-throughs this weekend. Only the Holy Cross department handed out the flyer in the breakfast. I didn't get one when we were in Piasta Centralia. So
it's an afterthought. I mean, I appreciate them doing it. I thought it was a great idea.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
never thought about it, but it was a good idea.
I think so too. And it was a true step forward. Everyone who came through, you know, I think they did 900 meals at that location. So 900 flyers went out, but I don't want this to be something that we decide next Monday and then have it go away like it's solved or not solvable. I think you bring up something that needs to be addressed. And so the avenue was the ARPA application, but I think we're learning that this needs to be, again, another work session where we take this as an issue to be resolved to see where we can be most strategic with our funding. And, you know, the Tom Hancock grant isn't funded out of ARPA funds. It's out of our, you know, our general basic account. So I thank you for this, and I hope we work as a board to try to lend our assistance to this idea.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
My last comments would be in support. I think if you look at the volunteer nature and the dedication and the consistency of our small towns having EMS and fire, over my life, it's incredible. It is a extreme benefit that we have and a tremendous asset. And so if I look out and I hear, trouble on the horizon as far as on recruitment and retention, I look at the cost lost of the service and possibly the lives. And then I look at the cost of replacing that with full-time government people. And those far outweigh the benefits and the assets we have today. And so I'm very inclined to support your proposal and see what we can to do to basically protect and provide the training, the support, the benefits, the outreach, whatever this group of 14 and or others feel is important to support. You have my support.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment as well. I'm on the Sageville City Council, and one of the council persons come up with a plan an idea for our rescue money to possibly fund a training for someone in Sageville to go to EMT class to belong to Cheryl. Currently, most departments are a 2-mile radius that they want to draw from, unless you have something to offer the department, such as myself. I'm a paramedic. I'm 7 miles away from the department, but I drive my own vehicle to the scene and I take care of the patient until the ambulance gets there. City of Sageville is looking to, train someone so that they can be on Cheryl Fire Department again to go there first. Sageville even went as far as trying to build a new city hall / community center / fire station substation for Cheryl, a place that we could park, a vehicle or two in there, an ambulance and or a fire engine to respond to the other half of our area where most of our calls are. That's met with a lot of opposition, which is understandable. But, basically it would give us a larger pool to draw from, because we have the Sageville's population and the rest of our area that we could pull people for volunteering. And again, that's still with Sageville, giving that money to someone that may want to go. It is someone that can offer something to Cheryl Fire Department, and they would still be a Cheryl firefighter, but they would live in Sageville and respond to ambulance calls and fire calls the same way that I do. But it's just something else that we're trying, different ways of getting volunteers. And, we're not, again, a lot of it is, again, to me, it's education and getting the word out that there's a need out there. The knit of fire and EMS people, everyone in that group knows that there's a huge need. But you go outside that circle, people that we go to on an ambulance with a volunteer think that we're paid. We're not paid nothing. We go there for nothing. Well, you were up anyway. What difference does it make? No, we weren't. We were with our family, just like you. And people on the outside of this, of the small core, don't know what we do or how we do it.
Right.
So,
Kevin, if I might just ask you, so I served on the Tom Hancock committee this last year, and I raised that in the committee discussion. Your application overlapped with the Tom Hancock grant opportunity. And that board told me that folks already know that they could apply for a Tom Hancock grant to do this, and to recruitment, to do EMS. And I just feel there's a disconnect that maybe supervisors need to be more expressive and more explicit about, to say that there's separate funding available to extend that Tom Hancock grant opportunity to this important work of recruitment and EMS service training. Because their response was, well, nobody applies for that. But I think what happens, and you please share, departments decide their top physical need or their top equipment need, right? So they're only putting in one application to Tom Hancock, and they know if it's their turn or not. So maybe you can address that. Is that what's happening? Why we're not getting those applications there?
my opinion is perception of the Tom Hancock grant money is for fire departments to use for equipment and items. It's never, I never thought about submitting this to the Tom Hancock grant because I didn't think You know, I just had a thought when, right after it was announced that the county was going to do this, you know, give applications. And I talked to Wayne Kennecker, who is the mayor of Sageville, and said, geez, Wayne, you know, I'd like to, he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And he helped me come up with some of the figures that I came up with. And as far as going back to the Tom Hancock, you know, I don't think anybody out there's thought about the Tom Hancock grant for recruitment or retention of, you know, it's more, I think it was more designed, in my opinion, the perception that I had of the Tom Hancock grant was we go and we ask for something that we need. And yes, volunteering is a need, don't get me wrong, but it's a tool or an item that we can put thank you for the Tom Hancock grant type thing. Whereas the perception of let's give it for recruitment retention, we can't put that Tom Hancock thing, you know, sign up and say, this is what this fire department got, you know, it's, you know, 3 recruits, you know, oh, wonderful, you know, but I just think it's more, my perception of the Tom Hancock grant was more tangible items and not of that. Yes, maybe it is an opportunity to put in for that. I guess I never thought about it because I didn't think it was a viable option.
Well, I guess that's what maybe we could work on. We could increase the grant by $50,000 a year, and that $50,000 can only be used for the purposes that you're describing. Do you see? We make it bigger, but we make it be that it's only for this. And then I think that might generate the conversation inside the departments about there's 2 areas you could apply for inside the same grant, using the same structure, same people, same format, just a restricted application. You check a different box when you submit the application.
And very much so. I like I said, it came to me just boom when I heard about this rescue money. I thought, what a great way. It benefits everyone in the county. The city would not benefit from this because we're not giving anything to the city for volunteering because obviously they don't volunteer. It's a paid. But the county, everybody in the county would, you know, hopefully get more volunteers and it would help the county as a whole. That's how and why I thought about it. And again, the Tom Hancock Award may be a viable option as well. Maybe that would be an ongoing option. You know, if we could do something with this to get the snowball going and to get it rolling, getting it larger. And maybe that's just you know, maybe we do if we do $100,000, and again, I'm throwing numbers. I don't know where $100,000 this year, maybe a $10,000 a year after that for some more advertising or some, you know, and maybe, you know, $20,000 for continued training to help with paramedic or EMS training. You know, I mean, I think, you know, I need assistance with this as well. I'm just one, every 10 of the 14 people that I talked to the other night said, if you need anything, let me know. If you need anything, let me know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of help, but right now I'm a one-man show.
I love grassroots and you reaching out to 10 and having them say, I can help you. You're not a one-man show. I think you have support behind you, certainly have support from this seat. As the originator of the Tom Hancock Memorial Fund, I would like to see that continue to go, and I'm happy to see it grow as well. So I've been very pleased with the progress so far for that funding and those specific needs. And I would keep that going without a doubt. Board of Supervisors in the community asked, what are your needs out there? And you stood up and are at the podium saying, here's one I've identified, and you have support throughout the county on this. And so I'd encourage my colleagues not to try to take your idea and wrap it into an existing program. That's not why we did the ARPA funds. Mm-hmm. These are short-term, they're going to expire, and you know, it's an opportunity to do something new. And so I would encourage your application as a standalone and not try to, you know, wrap it into an existing well-run and very rewarding program. So thank you for bringing this idea up.
Thank you. One thing I did put in the application, and it can be, I'm sure it can be changed, but after 5 years, you don't use your $50,000, it would have to go back. And I just said that because if,
good idea.
That way they're not saying, okay, we just got $50,000. you know, and we'll use it someday. Well, this is, again, I had a plan and that's how I wanted to proceed with that plan, but.
I think the funds have to be dedicated by,
Right.
but I mean, they have to be spent by 2026, so might have to change that to 4 years.
And-
You can get it to somebody else to get it spent, not that you're right at the deadline.
Correct.
That's the
And I
only-
had people, you know, and again, I'm trying to field all these questions and there's all kinds, I had, you know, I want, everybody want to, you know, cure everything. And, you know, why should Bernard get the same amount as Asbury? Their populations are, Bernard has, they have the same, if they have the same 3 people that wanted to get it, they don't have the means to send those 3 people to paramedic class either. So I thought every town should get the same amount of money just because. I think it's more fair than going by, well, why can't you do it by call load? Well, because you can't. That's my opinion. It's not saying it can't be, but that's my opinions. I think it's very important that we do it all. Everybody gets the same opportunity.
Generally in support of it. Like I said, I just know the issue is going to be the time constraints. That's where
And again, hopefully if
been
we,
to it for years, you know.
if we can get people now and if we can get people to help, you know, if we can get, if each department can get 2 to 3 people, to me, that's huge. 2 to 3 active people. If each department got 10 people with 2 to 3 being active, I think that'd be huge, huge.
Great idea.
Thank you very much. I appreciate talking to you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Questions. Thank you.
Keep going.
I need to recess for 5 minutes. So it's been great ideas, but I do that so that I don't rush you. Okay? I'll make a motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Second,
A motion is second to recess for 5 minutes. All in favor signify by aye.
aye.
Aye. We're in recess for 5 minutes.
Great.
Interesting.
Out to the river.
Called Board of Supervisors back into session. Next, we have a work session for the ERP funds from Dubuque Food Pantry.
Thank you, Supervisors. My name is Teresa Caldwell, and I'm the director at the Dubuque Food Pantry. We had submitted on September 15th an application for funding request, and we've changed that. This week is our third change, and you'll see that we went from 4,000 to 333 to 278 today. We had a strategic planning session in September that showed that we needed more space. And we were gonna try to purchase the property next door. Lots of work involved there with raising a building and building it back up. And our board members found a standalone building, which was the former Branham Monument building. And that was ideal. One level, double the space. We wouldn't have to work on 2 floors anymore. And the numbers here that we have before you, the purchase price was $310,000. The solar panels that we want to put back on, the former owner took his to put on his new building. Don't blame him at all. It saved him lots of money, and we know it's going to save us lots of money because we have several freezers and refrigerators to run. And his words were, his $800 electric bill went down to $300 a month by having those. So we definitely want them, that we have a fully exposed southern, or I guess southern is this way, rooftop, and plenty of off-street parking, just an all-around win-win for us. We will need an additional employee, additional equipment, and we're gonna need to pay to move we want our refrigeration units professionally moved, because you have to remove the what do you call it? You can if you want. Yeah. If it helps to have that before them. And let's see. We will be able to serve more people. We have just absolutely run out of space. If you've ever been down to the food pantry, you see we use every square inch of what we have right now. So this is very important that we move on. We actually started somewhere around 1974. It started in a closet, the food pantry in the Emmanuel Congregational Church. In '98, it grew too big and they were asked to leave, and we're in our present location. So 24 years ago is when we moved to the present location. And we've just outgrown it. And to be able to stay in our area, you know, just a couple blocks away, we feel like we're really going to be right in the middle of where we're needed. So we did receive some CARES Act money, and that's from the city. We had increased our delivery. We never had a delivery system. We started one because we found that the demographic that wasn't coming to us was seniors. And for 2 reasons, we felt we give them too much to carry and they didn't have transportation. And actually there's a third reason. A lot of them grew up saying, you know, somebody else can use it more than I can. So we said, but you deserve to have, you've worked all your life, you're, and everything is going up for them also. So by April to the end of the year, we did over 1,000 deliveries to 8 different senior complexes. And we intend to add 4 more to it. We just don't have the space right now to add until we get the move done. One of the TV stations back in December announced that we had moved. Well, we had not even purchased the property until December 30th. So as you know, it takes time to get everything in order. And the reason we took off, or we didn't include construction cost, is because we won't even have those numbers going to the contractor until tomorrow at our board meeting. So to ask for monies that we didn't know what it was going to be, we couldn't do that. So that deficit ask is 278, and I don't know if I have any other. If any of you have questions.
The current location at, what's that, 15th and
1598, yes, right on the corner of 16th and Jackson.
you're selling that then, or?
Right now, we're because we don't know when we can get out of it, we're gonna weigh whether it'll be better to have program income from it or sell it.
Okay.
And we didn't have even a figure on what it was worth right now, just that we do own it. We do own it.
I have no questions. I've been a supporter of the food pantry for quite a while.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your application.
All
Appreciate
right,
it. And
all right.
no, I've got a question or two.
Oh,
Can you
okay, all righty.
tell me a little bit about your clientele, that who you see and or trends potentially that you see that would, make it needed to have this move.
One has come up recently because the governor took away the declaration of COVID emergency that affected food stamps. So for instance, a senior receiving before COVID, a senior receiving $20 a month and I was told this by the director of food stamps here in this area, that a senior that was receiving $20 a month then got an increase to $250 a month. That's going back down to $20 a month. So we feel very fortunate that we already have a good footing helping seniors in different complexes, but we want to go further than that. We want to add 4 places to, so it'll be 12 places that we're going to, but also with our referrals, we want to be able to, on a certain morning of the week, deliver to other seniors who live in this little, apartment house or this little apartment house, and we say seniors because others they can have friends or family that can bring them. And a lot of seniors don't, but we're going to do all that we can. And we just see the possibilities so much better because right now we're so small. We have not opened up the front door yet. We still pack and have them pick it up. And with this, we're going to have much more space. We're going to have shelving that they can come in, check in, and they'll be able to walk through the aisles and pick up what they need. We'll have a vegetable case that they can see just like in the store. It's not going to be as elaborate, but at least they'll be able to see what they would like. We'll have a glass door refrigerator that they'll be able to see what they can pick out, and another one that has milk and eggs that doesn't need to be see-through. So, but we just see it so much better because we're going to have a personal shopper with each person. That way, as we go through, because we know a lot of the connections that, you know, where they can get this or where they can get that. And we'll be right across the street from the open closet, which is in St. John's Lutheran Church at 13th, also on the other corner. So we just feel like it's an ideal place for us, and the clientele will still have the same clientele, and they'll just have to come a couple extra blocks. Those that are walking, a lot of people walk, you know, use a grocery cart or a wagon or a stroller, whatever they have on wheels, to come and pick up their groceries. So, and we've grown, we give each family a week's worth of food for the number in their family. So a family of 7 is going to get more than a family of 1 or 2. So we are fair in that way. We've never run out of food. We've run out of eggs a couple of times in my 6 years, and we've run out of milk a couple of times, but that'll happen to grocery stores too. So we do the very best we can and shop very wisely. And we have a wonderful community that helps us. You know, we've got donations coming in the door every day. We've got different foundations that are helping us, you know, as we write grants. Frankly, 6 years ago, I never wrote a grant in my life until 6 years ago when Karen Caminetti, Wallert, called me the night before the applications were due and said, Teresa, we're wondering why you didn't fill out an application. And I said, well, I didn't know I could. When is it due? And she said, midnight tonight. I said, will you still take it till midnight tonight? And she said, sure. So, and we got that and every penny I asked for, and we got a new laminate floor that time. So I've been very confident in what I've asked for. We've never always gotten everything we asked for. And I realized 2 weeks ago when I sat here, how tight the funds were and how big the asks were. So I felt it needful for us to go back to rework the numbers. So if you have any other questions, then.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I love it. I
Dan,
love
do you have
helping
anything?
people.
I would just echo Teresa, the amazing work that you do, and I would agree with your statement that you've never asked for anything you haven't needed. And you are a great steward of every contribution the McDonough Foundation has made for you. So you do tremendous work, and you've helped the VIATS program early on in the pandemic. You helped us get food to people whose cupboards were completely and totally bare. And so that eternally grateful for that as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Your next, Kevin, a work session and possible action. Dubuque County Auditor regarding Dubuque County Treasurer appointment.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. I was thinking ARP. I completely forgot about that one. Hang on here. Let me get the shared screen up.
Kevin, I can't hear you. I don't.
Oh,
Is
my
Kevin
apologies.
speaking?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Give me 1 second here. All righty. So we are here, and this work session shouldn't take long, to discuss the potential appointment for a interim county treasurer. We went through this I think in December, and I sort of just reworked the communication with fresh dates. The first step, which was completed, is for the vacating officer to notify their intent to resign. That's occurred. Next step would be the Board of Supervisors announcing their intent to appoint for that position. I don't believe, given the time frame and the fact that we're going to have an election in November, that we would look at holding a special election. If that was the case, I believe the soonest we could do that would be July. And at that point, you've got a handful of months before the fall election. So it would make most sense to me for the supervisors to move forward with an intent to appoint. And I have also, I believe, included that official notice here in the packet, which is would be if the supervisors would approve this, and we do have possible action on this work session, so you can take that action today. The supervisors would approve this official notice. It would go into the papers on March 2nd, I believe is the date. Let me just look at the calendar real quick. Yes, it would publish in March 2nd in all 3 newspapers, and then no less than 4 and no greater than 20 days would put us, the soonest we could appoint would be March 6th, which is a Sunday. And so I would recommend that we would then appoint on that Monday, March 7th, and that's the date that's in this official notice. And that would have the appointee taking office at that point immediately after the board made the decision. So it's all pretty fresh in our head. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would recommend approval of the official notice of intent to appoint today. And if so, that starts the process for March 7th.
Any questions from my colleagues?
Who are we going to appoint?
I have, go ahead.
That part of the agenda today?
We can have that conversation. It's entirely up to you. I have reached out to a previous county employee who has 3 decades plus of experience in this building. Well respected and trusted regardless of party throughout the county. And somebody who can fill that gap for the next whatever 6-7 months until November comes. And I have sat down and had individual conversations with each supervisor and seem to all be in agreement that this person would be the person that would probably be the best to bridge this gap. I'm happy to name that person today if the board, if the chair should.
I'm asking you.
That conversation I had was with Denise Dolan, former auditor of Dubuque County. I feel in my 1 week's experience as county treasurer, I feel that she's the person to lead that office for the next couple months. She brings with her stability and knowledge and respect amongst pretty much the majority of the county. And that you're hard to find somebody who doesn't know that she did a fantastic job when she was here as the auditor. And she has agreed to take up that task if it should be offered to her.
And Kevin, when would her position end? This interim, or I guess it's not interim because
Correct. Yeah, we want to be
reminded me it's a full treasurer's position.
Yeah, we want to be careful about the interim. There's nothing interim about an appointment.
Correct. And I'm wrong, and I've done that twice now. But when would this the appointed treasurer, when would that next transition occur?
So after the election in November, as soon as that election is canvassed, the person who won the election for Dubuque County Treasurer would be sworn in immediately after that canvass, and they would take office at that point. Everybody else would get sworn in at the beginning of the year, when terms normally end. But because this was an office that was vacated, that candidate who should win would be sworn in immediately after we certify the election results. So you'd be looking, give or take, middle of November.
But the voters will decide.
The voters will decide. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have candidates filing this March for this office. There'll be a primary, if necessary, for that office in June, and then that office will be on the ballot in November.
I'm good with taking action today.
Yeah, again, the action today would be to approve the official notice.
That's correct.
Looking for a motion then.
Make a motion to, I guess, publish the official notice of our intent to appoint the next Dubuque County Treasurer on March 7th.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second for the publication of notice of intent. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries.
Thank you. We'll see you back here on this topic on March 7th then.
Kevin, thank you for the tremendous work that you're doing. I mean, it's amazing that you're making all these things happen. So thank you for the work as our auditor and treasurer currently.
Well, I'm a pretty amazing guy, so I appreciate it.
Just ask him.
Had to get that on the record.
Well, why not on 2/22/22? So there you go.
Our next work session is with the Disability Service Director for a program update. Dr. Williams.
Hi there. It's really hard to follow the auditor, just so you know. I apologize that I am not there in person. All of the roads in Galena and Joe Davis County are impassable because of the ice today. So please forgive me for not being there, but I couldn't even make it out to the truck in the parking lot without falling. So it's almost been a year since I walked into the county courthouse the first time and assumed the position of director and both director and coordinator for the East Central Region, director for the Dubuque County over the Mental Health and Disability Services Department. And I was thankful then, I'm thankful now, and I'm very excited just to bring you just a short update on the workings of the office and the activities for this past year. And thank you to Ed and Dawn for getting this from me and getting it up and ready. So the summary is, thank you again for this opportunity to serve the people in the Board of Supervisors. Department is functioning smoothly and efficiently, and we are under our planned budget for fiscal year 22. Dual county and regional roles continue to be developed, and increasing competency is happening on both fronts, and it is a learning process. So the next highlight really is the relationships. May, the CEO of the East Central Region, stresses to me all the time that relationships are key, especially in Dubuque County. And I think that's true for just life in general, but really have been focusing on establishing, maintaining, and developing trust with key organizations, especially in the Dubuque County area, in addition to the region. But as the Dubuque County coordinator, there's a little more affinity with local providers. And then have been involved in several key disability mental health initiatives that we'll go over. And next slide, please. So just looking at the department function, I will just say that I could not have done the things that I'm doing now with the department without the help of my colleagues. And many, but not all, are listed here. I really thank the Board of Supervisors. Each one of you has been so generous with your time and your guidance, and just when I have a question, I always get a call back, and I really, really appreciate your helping me get oriented to this role. And then to my other colleagues within the county, they're just awesome. I'm just privileged to be working with them. And I'm just going to shout out to Paula. I know she's might not be on this call, but Paula has helped me 1,000 times with billing and claims since Jocelyn left, and she's just amazing. So I just wanted to call that out. So the department claims for evaluations and diagnostics, and that includes legal, patient advocate, and operational. our office receives bills and invoices for these services, and there is a process, and it is quite an interesting process once you learn it, and then you do it again, and it actually works with that training, but it keeps the wheel of payment to our providers of these services going. My office also handles the mental health and substance use commitments. And that's largely coming from legal. And we help get those people that are committed into our regional system of care. It's a big database. And so we make sure that they're in there with the right information. And that's so that their bills can be paid if they qualify for those services. Nathan and his team, all of them over at IT have been outstanding in terms of just making sure that I have what I need to get things done with those IT supports and equipment. And really understanding the whole system. And I'm not done learning, and I am trainable. It's never the first time for the county. So it might be the first time for me to understand how something happens, but it is a process, and it's not only about how to, but it's the history, the rich history of Dubuque County that helps me shape and form what it is I need to do at that given time. So that's going well, I think. The unanticipated issues, certainly the legislative changes. There's many days that I think that I'm on Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks, and I'm in an asteroid field. And it's just, there's just so much monumental movement with how the region is going to work. We're still figuring it out. May's on top of it. And we've got a fabulous board of regional governing board of directors that are stewarding this whole process. And so I feel like I'm in very safe hands, even though we might not know what all the outcomes are yet, because it's still evolving. But you add to that the rapid dissemination of mental health funding that didn't happen only in Dubuque County, but as the contracting coordinator, I managed all of those contracts for the 9 counties. So to say that it was and then add ARPA on top of that, in terms of earlier times when I was part of the committee and we're figuring out who goes where, and I was doing some writing myself. Those were some unanticipated workloads that I couldn't have seen coming. Nobody could have seen coming. And then the Take Care Center concept, I'm really glad that I developed that as a response to call from leadership to really put your best ideas forward. I retracted it because learning that county acts in a certain way and region acts in a certain way, and a Take Care Center, I believe, is still a fabulous idea, just not sure if the county needs to be the leader of that. And that's the conversations that was had after presenting it to the Board of Supervisors and continuing discussions with May, and what could we do with this, and is this the right way to go about it? So, when I'm listening to these amazing people present, taking away $2 million of potential funding to make room for the people that your organizations and efforts you're going to fund, that's not a bad thing. That money's going to go to a very, very good place, whatever your decisions are. And the region will figure out if a Take Care Center is something that we might need in any county in our region. And then Jesslyn decided to go chase her dreams at the Anamosa prison, and she was a blessing And I think she was a blessing even more after she left, because I realized how much she knew and how efficient she was at doing things. And it was my role then to figure out what, the administrative things, her little nuances, to keep that wheel going. And so in the middle of November, when we received her resignation, I really spent a lot of time just kind of hunkering down in the office, figuring out what was first, what was second, how does this get done? And I'm richer for that experience. I will say that right now, May has been kind is not even the right word. Kindness is there, and also understanding that the load of absorbing a full-time position on top of what I was already doing could be a little stressful. And also that Jesselyn was so efficient at what she was doing, it might not have been, she might not have been busy all 40 hours. So I really appreciate the regional help that May has brought in on some of the really data entry components, some of that. Unanticipated issues. We had a little bit of a security issue at the Jones Street building. I moved across the hall with a door. Unanticipated issue with a relative low volume of public contact. It's not, it's not negative or positive. It was just, I thought there would be more public contact in terms of what the office managed, which may or may not be related to where we're at the Jones building. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Can you hear me? Thank you. Sorry. All right. So just real briefly, after a year, there's a split with this dual role in terms of what I do. And May's has a great quote that I remember, is what builds the MHDS in the county also builds the same in the East Central region. And so there's lines, I suppose, in how I do my work, but really if I'm helping Dubuque County, I'm helping the region grow and achieve some of its strategic outcomes. And so that's where I'm central to that. So I am the region, I am the county. Depending on which meeting I'm at, I might have a different hat on to that audience. The county role is mostly just taking care of the claims and the commitments, being a connector to the Dubuque County providers. I answer a lot of questions from providers that are interested in perhaps becoming a partner to the region. And then once we have that conversation, then I involve the other coordinators in the region for whatever question they might have. And also to facilitate the Disabilities Council. The regional role as contracting coordinator, I manage all of making sure that people are on a current contract that accurately represents what they're going to be doing and what they're going to get paid. And then there's a lot of other regional activities that go on at any given day. Next slide, please. Going back to the relationships, the top paragraph really those are the people that at the moment I'm working most intensely with. Some of them are project-based with the Dream Center and with Operation Empower. These are new to the region for fund balance and also for operational funds. So there's some stewardship going, helping them with how do they do their billing and making sure they're connecting with the right people in the region for those specific questions. Such a rich resource filled county. These organizations are doing amazing work. In process, Mercy 1, the ER 2 North, making sure that we're connected and just listening and being able to help if help is needed. With the other providers, hospital medical providers, could be a closer relationship with our office and HACAP and the Dubuque Rescue Mission, who is also just being brought on as a provider to the region. In the future, I can see making some connections with local churches, elderly care facilities and people, family support groups, certainly multicultural, rural communities and substance abuse providers. And then with the region, that continues to be pretty stable in terms of my role as contracting coordinator. Next. Okay, thank you. So for the key initiatives, you know, from the January 31st work session with the Board of Supervisors, the Disability Council. This is the highlight of, I have a lot of highlights in my days and weeks, but this is definitely one of them. This is just a joy to work with these people. We're almost full up with our applicants. They have decided to do their own mental health and disability survey to the county. That's going to be published sometime in the spring. We're working on that now. And their latest is a young adults group. So these are young adults with disabilities to convene a civic involvement for Dubuque County group. This will be sort of like maybe a committee, maybe a subcommittee, something like that. But they just approved that notion, and we'll be putting the bones and structure of that together in then our next meeting. Very proud to have worked on the shoulders of giants to realize the Hillcrest New Day Access Hub. Now this was already a going thing under SAMHSA funding, but for sustained regional funding, it sort of got stalled in process. And so being able to bring the right people together, have those discussions, get agreement on all sides, and you know, the final signing of the contract by the regional governing board was a highlight. Working with a lot of the fund balance awardees to manage what the region needs. Some of the budgets were a little loose, and we just need to make sure that funding supports mental health supports and services, so that there's no question should anything be looked at by auditing professionals. And that's been a lot of fun. So I'm really working on being a trusted agent for system partners in Dubuque County. Just being there, taking a call. I might not know the answer, but I get back to people, try to. And the Sheriff's Department is an entity that I'm working regularly, frequently, and earnestly to help resolve some of the rising issues. They've got so many people with mental health, brain health issues that are turned away from other systems of care and support. And so working very closely with Sheriff Joe and Mike Munster and Kurt Schultz and Beth, and just met Gretchen, the new law enforcement liaison, last week. She's also amazing. And so right now I'm doing a lot of introductions to people like the Catholic Charities and people like Michelle over at Operation Empower, who have new resources that they can bring to bear in the jail, in addition to try and find additional resources in the region for what they're doing. And then prepared and processed over 200 contracts for operational and fund balance services and projects in the past year. Next slide, please. So that is in a nutshell, just a brief overview. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that you want to ask me about the work?
Okay. No questions at this time. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Jay.
And do you have anything?
Just a note of gratitude, Anne. You're doing tremendous work and all those things that you juggle. And I know you're willingness to take on in July and learn about substance use disorder and disability as well is very much appreciated by me. So we are 1 year in a much better place, and I credit you for so much of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
I would echo that, Ann. You've done a terrific job. Greatly appreciate what you've done. Also have some communications from another county regarding our disabilities council, and I'll get with you on that. I think they want to know how it was set up because they're impressed with it also. So
Happy to work with them. Thank you very much. Thank you.
anything else? Boards and commissions update. Ann, you want to start?
Can we talk about the UCC?
Sure.
So there were, Ed, are you present? Can you go to the podium? You were at the UCC meeting.
I am here, Supervisor McDonough. Yes, I was there.
So there are a couple things that they've asked us to discuss amongst ourselves, and I think that that fits under this as an update. One of them, and I don't recall the bill, but it relates to conservation and the ability to purchase land. Can you step us through that at a very high level? So Supervisor Wickham, and we need to know whether we're going to register for or against, and it deals with what the Conservation Board wants to do as well.
The bill in question is one that was a reaction by a legislator or legislators regarding the budget of the DNR, where they were proposing to close the ranger residences at several state parks because of the lack of funds. And this legislator, in looking at the DNR's budget from the last year, identified that they had spent, it was reported at the meeting, $30 million on land acquisition. I don't know what that was, but that legislator thought that there was space or room in that budget to keep those park rangers in homes that had been appropriately updated, several of which apparently are historic. However, that resulted in proposed legislation that would restrict the ability of both the DNR and local governments like the county from being able to acquire land in times when it might be in competition for that purchase with anybody else. So although I've not studied that bill very deeply, it was written in a sort of reaction way. It wasn't necessarily initially done to focus on that land acquisition thing. That was just the vehicle that they were taking. And so it's not particularly refined in the way that you might see if this was a thing that the state had been studying about this. This is just a reaction bill. So several of your colleagues, Lynn County and some others, have registered against that, just for the reason that it was hampering local government's ability to pursue projects that it saw fit, including, although it did not pass here, the bond referendum that the county put before voters this last November. That would kind of restrict that as well. So they were asking on that initiative, and I'm grasping for the as I stand here the bill number, but that bill, if that was one that the supervisors, just by consensus, were interested in reporting back to the UCC, that the UCC as a body could go ahead and register either for, against, or undecided. That is the snapshot, I believe, Supervisor McDonough.
Right, they're asking us to come to some consensus, and Harley, you were on the call as well, and obviously we didn't discuss it.
Right. What it comes down to is it limits the ability to purchase ground to 80% of the value, which would obviously hurt the Conservation Commission if they wanted to buy additional property for trails, whatever. They have to have the ability to at least be in the bidding process to get that property. And then I read it had something to do with the tax credits that the seller would also get.
Or remove those tax credits, that the seller would not get any of those benefits.
Right.
I haven't seen the Conservation Department agenda. I don't know. I think the Conservation Department's meeting Thursday. Is that right, Supervisor Wickham?
On Thursday, yes.
So I'm wondering if that's on the agenda for discussion, and how should, how should we report back at the UCC meeting this week?
Big into lobbying, so.
Be whether we support it or we'd be against it. Asking our opinion.
We do, I mean, this is where this process gets clunky, so Dubuque County doesn't register. Our lobbyists do.
That's
And
correct.
so we are one of one of five entities. And, the Board of Supervisors appointed a representative to that group. That's
We
all.
appointed all of us.
All of us, okay.
In general, the frame of reference that the Urban Counties Coalition represents is perhaps not even the nuances of this proposed bill, but bills that erode the local capacity for local government to take actions that provide additional regulations on them. Those are ones that the UCC tends to register against. So not necessarily about any specific thing in this particular proposed legislation, but just in general that that's stepping into local control.
Yeah, I see the UCC notes that are sent out every 3 or 4 days with the bills. I also follow bills on ISAC and plenty of other news outlets. I've been struggling with our process with UCC, and that's why I voted against being a paying member of that. So I would struggle today with what we're trying to accomplish as a board. As a board, individually, I could certainly, you can probably guess where I fall related to being on the Conservation Board and supporting conservation initiatives. And so why this one is elevated today for discussion, I don't know. There's another, 10 or 20 or 50 that we could be discussing.
This is one that they've asked our opinion on.
Other ones they don't. So that seems.
Well, this is the auditor. I've been participating in these meetings as well, and mark me down for enjoying the experience and actually seeing some changes come from it. Because when we communicate issues with voting bills, they will directly take it to legislators. And in a handful of cases, some of the voting legislation has been modified slightly in our favor and in regards to things that we're suggesting, as far as the boots on the ground, this is how it operates. This piece of legislation was specifically asked of each county as to whether we would be in support or not of it. And I think that's what Supervisors McDonough and Potoff are looking for, is if there's a consensus that this would be a bill that we would join our other counties that have similar interests in opposing this bill. And again, everybody's fond of saying it. Consensus is 2. 3 is obviously stronger, but.
And then how does it work at the UCC? Majority rules, and what if it's a tie? It doesn't carry. So, I mean, that seems to be, in the meetings I'm on, it seems to be pretty loose, which is fine. They're a lobbyist group. They're really not a board or commission. It's a lobbying meeting because they are paid lobbyists, registered lobbyists. There are rules around that. But what's their process? Is it majority?
Right now, they're asking us, they're holding registering on this bill so that Dubuque County can make a decision where we are. Obviously, Harley and I can't have conversation on this call because we are prohibited from doing that. So, Harley, I would even ask you where you are on this. We shouldn't, the process will move forward. This is our opportunity to give a response that we're not in favor, and then likely they will not register. They'll remain undecided, right? But Lynn County's already gone ahead. They're registered opposed because Lynn County has their own lobbying efforts. So does Dubuque County want to take a position on this with our hired lobbyists or not? And I think that's, it strikes me that conservation should be aware of this. Ed, maybe you can send that on to Brian Preston, the bill, so he's aware of it.
And I believe Lynn County's Conservation Board was in fact going to also submit a letter or submit communication.
Correct.
And back to your question, I believe if it's not unanimous, they register as undecided.
Been on those 5-person boards?
I think so. For the UCC. If it's unanimous, they'll support or.
Okay,
What I'm saying.
got it. I got it. Yeah. was thinking
I
the boards
personally
formed
would
between the boards.
be in favor of opposing it.
And that's where I am as well. So Supervisor Wickham, did you want to take a position on this, or shall we just move forward based on consensus?
I think you have consensus. I would encourage you to move forward and communicate that to our lobbyists.
Okay, we will do that. What was the other bill, Ed? Wasn't there two of
The
them?
other, yeah, they wanted us to be aware of the bill about supervisor redistricting. If we probably need to get up to speed on that one and decide whether, I think they've registered as opposed to that. I don't know that, but Ed, if you want to give any background on that, please do so.
Again, among the 5 counties in the Urban County Coalition, several of them already have 5 supervisors, and several of them already use Plan 3 in that has districts that supervisors are elected from. The bill that they're talking, that Supervisor McDonough has brought up, is one that would direct counties that are essentially the metro counties over 60,000 in population, and those are only the metro counties in the state, that they would be required to use Plan 3 and have districts for their supervisors. It doesn't say you have to have 5 or 3 or whatever, but just that as you select them, it's from districts. And again, the UCC, even though some of its members already do that, the inclination from the UCC in general is this a restriction on local control, the will of the voters, because actually this is a thing that voters in counties can petition to have changed, or that the governing body can initiate on its own. This is a bill that would restrict those decisions and erode some local control, and therefore the UCC as its basis would say that they oppose that.
I haven't already expressed my view to Ben regarding it. I'm opposed to it, as are, I think, everyone else with the UCC. It'd be extremely expensive for the county. We'd have to, well, not we, the auditor would have to redistrict everything, which he just got done doing. And there's really no benefit. If the citizens want to have districts, there's a mechanism in the current law that they can petition to have that done.
This is a great opportunity to utilize UCC or lobbyists or people that speak with our legislators to remind them that if this is in fact really meant to address issues in a couple of counties, that a simple moving of the 60,000 to 120,000 also accomplishes that and does not affect Dubuque County. So you don't have to necessarily destroy the entire legislation, just simply change the threshold for entrance.
Affect the ones that they want.
And that would be something that, I would be in support of. Obviously I'm in support of anything that doesn't let this happen, but that's where some value does come. If you can't change the legislation completely, maybe you can tweak areas of it that still benefit our county.
I believe I would add, if I could, that this is again is a reaction bill. I think there is some perception by some in the legislature that these metro counties, that all of the representation on the Board of Supervisors comes from the core city, and there's relatively little representation from the rural area or the area outside that core city. And your colleague from Johnson County, where they have 5 supervisors but are not elected from districts, had noted that I think none of the 5 live in Iowa City. And for comparison purposes, in Dubuque County, none of the 3 supervisors live in the city of Dubuque either. So I think in the discussion, it appeared that at least in the counties that don't use that plan here in the UCC, that it was an issue chasing a concern that may not be there.
This has been brought up every year I've been on this board.
Right,
so
that's correct.
It's not new.
That is correct.
Right. This passed out of committee though, Jay. So again, the UCC is just asking us, and they've asked us to check. So here we are just checking in. I think we should also join and be registered as opposed. It definitely undercuts the will of the voters. It's right there in the state law already that they could petition to have this be done. In Lynn County, they've done it back and forth a bunch of different times. So I think we're trying to protect the integrity of the home rule issue and allow voters to make that choice personally rather than let the state legislature make that choice for them.
Your opinion on this one?
Let you lead. Supervisor McDonough is the, so when I hear we're all on this, that doesn't, well, we're all on this, we've designated Supervisor McDonough to be our local representative, right?
No, we appointed all of us on it.
So how does that work?
Because you
All
said,
debate?
because you said that you also go to these and you also wanted to be on this.
Well, I'm just saying how it works as far as who speaks. Right now, only one person speaks this year. Is that right?
That's correct. One person
Thanks.
speaks at the meeting.
And that's Supervisor McDonough. I'm just not saying it's
Well,
bad. I'm
No,
just,
it's some Fridays it's
If-
Supervisor Potoff, some it's Supervisor McDonough. Sometimes they're both on the call and they will work out between them who's going to speak. These meetings are largely for us informational. We're learning what's going on, what the pulse is, what the bills are, what our fellow counties.
I get
also
that. So
think.
I can show up and then just start speaking.
If
And
you
then if
start
they ask a
speaking,
question, I can say, how does Dubuque, I mean, they ask, what Dubuque County? And if I say, yeah, we're in favor of it.
yes.
Nobody says that, Jay. We don't say that. That's why we're here today. When they say, where is Dubuque County? We say, hey, we don't know. We can't talk about it. We'll get back to you. Now we're at the time where things have come out of committee and they're asking us to take positions so that they can do their job for us.
If Ann starts talking on a certain bill, she handles that one. If I start on one, I finish it.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's,
If you want
it's
to be
fairly
on, you're more than
straightforward.
welcome to be on. If you have input on a bill, have at it. You know, that's.
And in addition, there are other people from Dubuque County that are on that call too that may interact with the other participants as well. And that includes the auditor. I'm on most all of those. There are a number of times that the budget director is on those calls as well. So, and as Kevin said, a lot of it is just understanding what's going on there and providing some local feedback about how that might impact us and things. It's not a lot of voting particularly, because again, the main thing that is the approach that the UCC has is that if this is a bill that restricts local or erodes local control, that's one that they will probably say will register against unless there's some tactical reason to not do that and remain undecided. And sometimes there are reasons to do that because it may restrict your access to certain legislators.
I would be with you on Ann. We'd be willing to register as opposed to that.
Okay, there's one more that I think we should also have some discussion and update about, and that is the Senate's bill about the flat tax. And this again goes back to conservation as well, because it relates to IWIL and the 1% sales tax. So obviously Supervisor Potoff, you and I have never talked about this, but it's been discussed about the Senate has provision in their tax plan that the 1% would be taken, would be paid to the state, the local option sales tax, and then it would be returned to us under a different distribution rate other than what these Dubuque County voters voted on. Our 1 cent sales tax for local option sales tax goes exclusively to secondary roads. And this would, again, circumvent voters. But, you know, Ed, do you have other context for this? But I think that's another one that certainly Lynn County has asked us to address. They don't quite understand why the Conservation Board wouldn't take a position opposed to this. But I don't know that the Conservation Board's been discussing it.
I have talked about, this is Ed, I have discussed this with Brian Preston. The bill that the Senate has proposed is very broad. It does rededicate how the local option sales tax works. It would become more like what is currently the state's school local option tax. It has a different name that I can't remember it now, SAVE or something like that. It used to be SILO. And this new local option sales tax, because it's the state initiating this, they are removing that capacity from local governments to do that. And again, that's the reason that the UCC and its members tend to say, well, you're removing local control from that. And that's the reason that we would line up against it, register against. Other parts of county government, including conservation boards and their association, not this particular one in Dubuque County, but the association of those conservation boards and conservation directors have looked at that and said, this is an event that will trigger IWILs, which is the constitutional addition to our state constitution, that the next 3/8% of the sales tax that the state imposes will go to fund the conservation trust fund. And there's some discussion that the current administration and legislature is looking to do this because they would budgetarily not make that in addition to additional funds that are available for conservation like REAP and some others, but essentially sort of slide them together. So it perhaps may be a little bit larger, but essentially not the much larger pot that they had hoped for when the constitutional amendment was ratified. So what the conservation groups are hoping is that this will just trigger it. They're hoping for that, and that at some future time, maybe those things change, but that their goal has been to trigger IWILs. That's a different approach than, say, a number of ISAC or other supervisor groups and municipalities that look at this as an erosion of local control. Even though the state says, and Senator Dan Zumbox tells me, no, you'll get the same money that you have before, and you'll have to use it in the same way, and you'll just get you'll still continue to get the checks because we don't actually collect it. It goes to the state and they cut us a check anyway. So it's some different approaches between our organizations within the county's umbrella.
But it does put at risk our ability to use the 1% exclusively for secondary roads.
Well, yes and no, because you have to have a plan in place, which we do, so that money would still go to roads. I think for the ones that do not have a plan in place, they'd have to have one in place, and a certain percentage of it has to go to
property tax relief.
And there was discussion that property tax relief would perhaps supersede any plans in place.
Correct.
So there is that component that 5/8% would be designated by the state for reduction of property taxes, and that we would not have the ability to say, look, we have a plan that sends all of our local option sales tax to secondary roads, that 5/8 cent would supersede it. So even though the state can claim that they're giving us all of our money back, they're actually telling us what we can do with 5/8 of it, which does affect hundreds of thousands, if not million, if not a couple $1 million worth of funding for secondary roads currently.
I would be in favor of registering as opposed to that also.
As would I.
Cool.
Take that as a consensus.
I would say, present that to the UCC.
I will communicate that to them today. Thank you.
Ed, could you communicate to Brian Preston this conversation that we are registering opposed to that? And I would want to know before I guess I would want to know if the Conservation Board in Dubuque County would decide that it is a way to get that IWILS begun, because that would be directly contradictory to what we're saying right now in this room.
Correct.
Yeah, and I
And-
would, since I'm on the Conservation Board, it's been mentioned a couple times. So the Conservation Board is not a political action committee, okay? In my term, both as supervisor and on the Conservation Board shortly, they haven't weighed in a lot of political issues, okay? I think the board today feels and thinks historically that their influences within Dubuque County related to conservation operations and obviously advocacy for conservation. And so be careful having supervisors, the strong voice say you should do this, board. I think that's a discussion the board and the directors should have and let them be involved.
Correct, but we're here asking you for information about whether that's your role, conservation board member, and a member of the Board of Supervisors. What is happening in conservation regarding these issues? When we are at the UCC, Lynn County's Conservation Board discussions come through, they are filtered through. And with regard to how other departments look at these issues, I know that Brian Preston has been very aggressive. Pre-pandemic, he was handing out literature at League of Women Voters, Cracker Barrels, asking people to rally against proposed legislation. I helped him do that one day outside of the room. And Ed has done a fantastic job of taking issues that come up at the UCC and sending them out to our department heads. I believe one time Anthony Bargetti even joined a call. So Dubuque County brings a richness of opinions to the UCC. So I don't want to silence that. I think that we bring a great deal of information to help form the UCC response to pending legislation.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And everyone you mentioned was a staff member, and I think that's wonderful. More knowledge is helpful. My comment was to the Conservation Board, which is a citizen board of 5. And what I just explained to you, and maybe it wasn't helpful or you didn't want the answer, they don't take up these items. We don't discuss them. We haven't in the past. And so that would be a change. And if the Conservation Board wants to do that, that's a discussion I think they should have with their director. My comment was having supervisors with a strong voice say, you should do this, is what I would kind of get some pushback to, not just for Conservation Board, but for Health Board and a variety of the other boards and commissions that are out there. That in my mind is an overstep of the supervisor's role. So that's just my comments.
When I voted to put you on the Conservation Board, you assured me that this would be your role, is to bring Board of Supervisors issues. You would be that connector to Conservation Board, and that's the role.
I don't know what I can tell you. The board has not discussed it. What more do you want from me?
Could you ask the board to discuss it?
No.
Okay, there you have it.
Just to be clear, I will be communicating this to the director, your staff person.
Exactly. That's who should receive it. The director should be receiving communication from the supervisors. That's how this works. In addition, all 3 of us are elected officials. We can talk to board members and citizens and explain things as well. But have a supervisor dictating to department heads, I'm against, and I know a lot of that goes around. I'm not for that. Anytime I talk to department heads and staff, I say, this is just one supervisor, this isn't a directive. And I make sure they're clear that the Board of Supervisors as a whole entity, you know, works in that compassion, not one supervisor.
That is also the way I make my communications known.
Yes. But my understanding was Ed was just going to give the information to Brian.
Right.
And for some reason, there was some wires crossed here. I think it got way distorted, so Ed will talk to Brian regarding that, so. Is there anything else on there that you wanted to discuss, Ann? I think there were only 3 on the UCC.
Right, I think there were only 3 on the UCC, so we'll, someone can give that update. Ed, do you want to give the update to the UCC about where we are?
I will be communicating that and I'll carbon all of you on that communication.
Thank you, Ed.
I don't have anything else to report, I don't think, from boards. I guess the Dubuque County Early Childhood, they're just continuing, I mean, not just, they're doing great work with the purchase of services. They in their 2nd year to develop spots in in-home daycare. So that meeting was last week. I know we have a handout prepared for us with our schedules, but I think that is incorrect for my schedule. So, and then this week I also will be at the East Central Regional Governing Board in Cedar Rapids.
That's Thursday, correct?
Yes, and of course the Zoom option works, I think, pretty well there. So if anyone wants to, Harley, you frequently attend those. I see you up on the black screen frequently.
I have a agenda review at 1 o'clock scheduled, so it
Okay,
may jump on after that. We'll see how things go.
okay.
Other than that, I don't have
The-
much. Obviously missed a few meetings because of being out of town last week.
Oh, the conference
County
board.
Conference Board, you handled that for me. Thank you for that. I think that's all I have. Jay, you have anything? That should take care of everything. The supervisor schedule is attached to the, I guess, agenda now, so. There's nothing further. Be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good week, everyone.